Chapter 1152. Inside the Withering Blood Mountain Range. Thaling, how much do you know about the Blood Peak frogs? In his previous life, although he had entered the Withering Blood Mountain Range twice, his goal was only to search for the withered dragon wood, which contained rich blood and poison. He didn't have much contact with the exotic beasts in the mountain range, nor did he conduct any in-depth investigations or understanding of them. As for the Blood Peak frogs that could produce blood beads, it was his first time hearing about them. As such, if he wanted to come up with a plan to capture a large number of Blood Peak frogs, he had to understand their grade and strength in detail, as well as some of their habits. The Blood Peak frog is a relatively docile exotic beast. An adult Blood Peak frog's grade is at most 7th tier, 9th grade. After hearing Yuhauran's question, Thaling gave it some thought before explaining. However, the Blood Peak frog has a leaping ability similar to teleportation. It can break free from any force or formations restraints. As such, if you want to successfully capture a Blood Peak frog, you have to either stun it instantly or kill it directly. Thaling's introduction wasn't detailed enough, so Yuhauran could only continue asking, "Thaling, what do the Blood Peak frogs usually feed on? Do they have any special preferences?" "They seem to like eating a type of exotic beast called the blood mosquito. If I'm talking about their preferences, they're especially fond of sleeping, and can sleep for years without waking up," Thaling continued. Blood mosquito. Hearing Thaling mention the blood mosquito, Yuhauran's eyes couldn't help but light up. In his previous life, when he entered the Withering Blood Mountain Range under the Void Spirit Mouse's lead, he didn't encounter too much trouble. The only time he was nearly trapped was because of a large number of blood mosquito. The blood mosquito was also an exotic beast with a low grade. However, unlike the Blood Peak frogs, the blood mosquito was not only ferocious by nature, surviving on the blood of living creatures, but they also didn't fear death. Even if they were facing an opponent thousands of times stronger than them, they would still charge forward courageously. In his previous life, when he was surrounded by a large number of blood mosquito, it was the first time he entered the Withering Blood Mountain Range with the Void Spirit Mouse. After that, he refined 2 special medicinal pills based on the blood mosquito he captured alive. One was used to drive away blood mosquitoes, and the other was used to attract blood mosquitoes. Yuhauran carefully recalled the pill formulas for the 2 types of pills from his previous life. After confirming that he had enough medicinal ingredients in his storage ring to refine the 2 types of pills, he began to search for a suitable place to refine the pills. In the end, with Thaling's reminder, they found a group of rocks by the stream. Hiding in the gaps between several red rocks, he then used the formless pill condensation technique to refine 9 pills to drive away and 9 pills to attract blood mosquitoes in a short 5-minute. Yuhauran, wait a moment. Yuhauran left behind an elixir to attract the blood mosquitoes. Just as he was about to get up and leave the gap between the red rocks, the Thaling in his sea of consciousness suddenly reminded him. Quickly retracting his presence, Yuhauran stared in the direction of the stream through the cracks in the rocks. It didn't take a long time, only a little more than a minute. A huge beast that was over 100 meters tall, resembling a tiger but not a tiger, resembling a dog but not a dog. It had snow-white fur all over its body and suddenly landed beside the stream. After sniffing around the stream for a while, the white dog said to Bai Fan, who was on its back, "Young Master Fan, Yuhauran should be around this stream." Hearing the white beast in front of him mention his name, Yuhauran immediately became nervous. However, when he saw the handsome young man who jumped down from the white beast's back, his eyes revealed a look of fear. This was because that handsome young man was the same as Ning He, giving him a dangerous and fatal feeling. "Thaling, who are they?" Yuhauran asked with a serious expression. "One of the 4 great guardian families, the White Tiger family." He couldn't use the possession technique to help Yuhauran increase his strength, nor could he kill the white dog and the handsome young man himself. Therefore, facing Yuhauran's question, Thowling replied with a heavy tone. It was actually someone from the white tiger family. After hearing Thowling's heavy reply, Yuhauran's eyes flashed with a strong killing intent. White dog, use the heavenly dog bloodline in your body and lock onto Yuhauran's position for me. Bai Fan, who had landed beside the stream, used his powerful divine sense to scan the surroundings of the stream and couldn't help but frown. This was because he discovered that the Withering Blood mountain range contained a special energy that could interfere with divine sense. This special energy made him unable to use divine sense to track and lock onto Yuhauran's position. He could only rely on the white dog's other bloodline power. Yes, young Master Fan. After hearing Bai Fan's order, the white dog immediately shook its huge body. Along with the shaking of its body that was over 100 meters tall quickly shrunk, quickly becoming a strange beast that was less than 10 meters tall and looked like a dog. Moreover, its snow-white fur was also replaced by black. Yuhauran, leave quickly. After seeing the white dog turn into a black dog, Thowling's expression suddenly changed as he reminded. This is a strange beast that contains both the bloodlines of the white tiger and the heavenly dog. The heavenly dog was a type of fierce beast from ancient times. Its strength was second only to the 9 great divine beast kings. Not only could it swallow the stars and the sun, it was also especially good at tracking by scent. As long as it grasped the scent of its opponent, even if they were separated by millions or even tens of millions of kilometers, it could easily lock onto its opponent's exact position. Facing the white dog that had transformed into a heavenly dog and was preparing to use the heavenly dog's secret tracking technique, Yuhauran knew that even if he escaped immediately, he wouldn't be able to escape the heavenly dog's tracking. Seeing the white dog raise its nose and slowly aim at the group of rocks he was hiding in, Yuhauran suddenly became nervous. He subconsciously clenched his fists, but unexpectedly felt the pill in his left hand. Thinking that the pill he had just refined was a weapon to attract the blood mosquitoes, a more insidious method immediately flashed through his mind. Thowling, use your spiritual sense to create some movements on the opposite side of the stream to attract their attention. Yuhauran stealthily placed the pill on the nail of his middle finger. Then, he used his thumb to firmly press down on the pill. Yuhauran instructed the tower spirit in his sea of consciousness. Yuhauran, what are you trying to do? Thowling, who didn't notice Yuhauran's little movements, asked puzzledly. Let me invite you to watch a fight between the snipe and the clam, and the fisherman benefits, Yuhauran said with a smile. All right. Nodding his head, Thowling immediately mobilized all of his spiritual sense in the Wuxi realm. Under the condition that he wouldn't alarm Bai Fan and the white dog, he continuously shook the few small trees on the opposite side of the stream. Who is it? Hearing the sound of the trees shaking, Bai Fan asked nervously, and immediately rushed to the side of the small trees. Affected by Bai Fan's stern question, the white dog also immediately turned and rushed to the opposite side of the stream vigilantly. Chapter 1153. In the Withering Blood Mountain Range. 5 seconds later, a confused Bai Fan brought the white dog back to the side of the stream. Young Master Fan, there's no need to worry. I think it's possible that some weak beasts in the mountain range were unable to withstand the tiger's might that you unintentionally emitted and caused the trees to shake when they fled in panic. Looking at the frowning and doubtful Bai Fan, the white dog made a smart guess. Perhaps. There was no trace of the culprit who shook the trees, nor was there any trace of the culprit's aura at the scene. The confused Bai Fan could only reluctantly accept the white dog's guess. Soon after, he remembered the business of entering the Withering Blood mountain range and hurriedly instructed the white dog. White dog, continue to use the tracking technique of the Heavenly Dog Bloodline secret technique to lock onto Yuhauran's exact location. Yes, young Master Fan. After answering the order, the white dog returned to its previous position and continued to use the tracking technique to track Yuhauran's location. However, when it shook its nose and began to analyze the lingering scent in the air, it was immediately choked by a strange stench and began to cough. Following the white dog's violent coughing, a buzzing sound suddenly rang out around the stream. Fan couldn't help but frown and raise his head to take a look at the buzzing sound that came out of nowhere. Immediately after, his expression changed as he shouted at the white dog. "White dog, hurry up and leave this place." However, when Fan jumped onto the white dog's back and planned to turn around and leave the stream, he discovered buzzing sounds coming from behind him. Following the buzzing sounds, blood-red mosquitoes the size of watermelons surrounded them from all directions. Life-devouring blood mosquitoes. These are life-devouring blood mosquitoes. Seeing the tens of thousands of blood mosquitoes coming from all directions, the white dog trembled and cried out involuntarily. White dog, immediately overdraft 1/3 of the white tiger bloodline in exchange for the strength of a martial saint. Follow me and kill our way out of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes' encirclement. Fan, whose face was as gloomy as water, took out a set of silver-white gloves and sternly instructed the white dog. "Yes, young Master Fan." A trace of hesitation flashed across the white dog's eyes. When it saw the increasing number of life-devouring blood mosquitoes, it finally gritted its teeth and nodded in agreement. As the white tiger's bloodline was overdrawn, not only did the white dog's body double in size, but it also emitted a terrifying aura that directly shattered countless trees and rocks by the stream. "Awoo!" The white dog roared at the life-devouring blood mosquitoes heading to the periphery of the withering blood mountain range. The white dog that temporarily possessed the strength of a martial saint turned into a beam of white light and charged over. Boom! Dozens and hundreds of life-devouring blood mosquitoes were directly crushed into powder by Fan's fist art with the help of the glove. Awoo! Hundreds and thousands of life-devouring blood mosquitoes were also crushed into powder by the white dog's martial highness aura. Unfortunately, when the white dog used the secret technique of overdrawing the white tiger's bloodline in exchange for the powerful strength of a martial venerable, it directly shattered the pill under its feet. This caused the snow-white fur on its feet to be stained with quite a bit of the pill's powder. Therefore, although the white dog relied on its powerful martial venerable strength to quickly bring Fan out of the encirclement of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes, there were still tens of thousands of life-devouring blood mosquitoes in hot pursuit. In the end, they were forced to retreat from the withering blood mountain range. How is this possible? Looking at the unusually ferocious blood mosquitoes that were the size of watermelons, Howren's face revealed an expression of disbelief. In his previous life, when he was surrounded by the blood mosquitoes, the mosquitoes were at most the size of an adult's fist. Not only were there not as many of them as there were now, but their strength and ferocity were also not as terrifying. Could these blood mosquitoes also be the result of the demon god's ancient tomb's power being replenished by the ancient tomb's power after it exploded? No. Thaling shook his head and looked into the depths of the withering blood mountain range through the space in his knowledge sea. I think that something must have happened in the depths of the withering blood mountain range, causing the blood mosquitoes that originally had an ordinary bloodline to mutate. In the end, they evolved into the life-devouring blood mosquitoes that even martial venerables do not dare to face directly. Since the blood mosquito's bloodline has mutated, can the blood-peak frogs still feed on the life-devouring blood mosquitoes? Compared to the change in the depths of the withering blood mountain range, what Howren wanted to know the most was whether or not he could still use the life-devouring blood mosquitoes to lure the blood-peak frogs. "I don't know either," Thaling said with a bitter smile as he shook his head in response to Howren's question. "Gwa gwa." Just when Howren and the pagoda spirit did not know if the life-devouring blood mosquitoes attracted by the elixir could still lure the blood mountain frog out, a series of crisp, croaking sounds suddenly rang out around the humming spring. Gwa gwa. As more and more sounds rang out, the tens of thousands of life-devouring blood mosquitoes that had gathered around the spring because of the pills immediately began to flee in all directions. a blood-red tongue immediately swept away a life-devouring blood mosquito that was desperately trying to escape. As the sounds of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes became louder and louder, more and more blood-red tongues appeared in the air. Thaling, is this the blood peak frogs that you said are at most at the 9th level of the 7th level? Yuhauran asked with an ugly expression as he pointed at the blood peak frog that was as big as a buffalo and exuded an aura that was not inferior to that of the 9th level of the king realm. Faced with Yuhauran's ugly expression, Thaling said excitedly, "Wait a minute." Then, he used his powerful divine thoughts to directly shatter a blood peak frog that had reached the 7th level of the king realm. He took a cherry-sized blood bead from its body and carefully examined it. Look! After a careful examination, Thaling exclaimed to Yuhauran in surprise. After the mutation, the blood peak frog's level and strength have undergone earth-shaking changes. As a result, the energy in its blood bead is more abundant, and it can stay in the blood lake for a longer time. Thaling said with a smile after sending the blood bead to Yuhauran with his divine thoughts. Yuhauran, this is the energy contained in a blood bead. It's enough for you to stay at the bottom of the blood lake for half an hour. After hearing Thaling's introduction of the energy contained in the blood bead, Yuhauran immediately looked at the blood peak frogs that had appeared around the spring with excitement. There were more than 1,000 of them. Thaling, let's attack together and kill as many as we can. Yuhauran reminded Thaling before he activated the body of the ancestor of sorcery and took out the purple cudgel and was ready to attack. Don't worry. Thaling, who had also mobilized all his divine thoughts and was ready to attack at any time, said. When the number of life-devouring blood mosquitoes around the spring was reduced to just over 1,000, Yuhauran, who suddenly jumped out of the rocks, reminded Thaling. Chapter 1154. In the Withering Blood Mountain Range. Using the powerful strength of the ancestral wizard's body, coupled with the indestructible purple staff, a total of 63 blood mountain frogs were shattered and stunned by the staff's power after using the overwhelming staff technique. After using his divine sense to collect the 23 blood beads on the ground, Yuhauran withdrew the purple staff and started to harvest the lives and blood beads of the remaining blood peak frogs with basic staff technique. The pagoda spirit, which used the martial emperor's powerful spiritual sense, was not as powerful as Yuhauran's attack at the beginning. However, the speed at which it shattered and collected the blood mountain frogs was at least 3 times faster than Yuhauran. By the time the blood peak frogs that had devoured the life-devouring blood mosquitoes realized the danger and used their teleportation to escape, Yuhauran had already collected 75 blood beads. Thaling had collected a total of 207 blood beads, making a total of 282 blood bead. According to Thaling's estimation of the amount of time the blood beads contained to maintain the bottom of the blood lake, 282 blood beads were enough for him to stay at the bottom of the blood lake for nearly 6 days and 6 nights. 6 days and 6 nights was more or less enough for him to improve his comprehension of the laws of life and death. Therefore, Yuhauran and Thaling did not continue to pursue the fleeing blood peak frogs. Looking at the ground around the stream that was already covered by the corpses of the blood peak frogs and life-devouring mosquitoes, Yuhauran took a deep breath and put the collected blood beads into the victor so that Thaling could activate the energy in the blood beads at any time to protect his safety. Then, according to the memories of his previous life, he went straight to the blood lake in the depths of the Withering Blood Mountain Range. Half an hour after Yuhauran left the stream, the slightly disheveled Bai Fan and the white dog returned to the stream. Bai Fan's originally gloomy face became even gloomier when he saw the corpses of the blood peak frogs and life-devouring mosquitoes. Young Master Fan, the smell of blood around the stream is too strong. Even if we use the secret technique of the Heavenly Dog's bloodline, it would still be difficult to distinguish Yuhauran's scent in a short period of time. The white dog, whose aura was slightly weak, replied to Bai Fan after it transformed into the Tengu and used the tracking secret technique. It found that it was difficult to analyze the unique scent that belonged to Yuhauran in the air. Continue tracking. No matter how long it takes, you must lock onto Yuhauran's exact location. Ignoring the white dog's weakness, Bai Fan gritted his teeth and ordered. From the life-devouring blood mosquitoes' relentless pursuit and the blood mountain frogs' corpses all over the ground, even a fool could tell that someone was deliberately using a special method to attract the life-devouring blood mosquitoes and blood mountain frogs. Furthermore, based on the pill dregs left on the white dog's leg hair, as well as the fatal temptation the pill dregs posed to the life-devouring blood mosquitoes, Bai Fan was 100% certain that the murderer was Yuhauran. Ever since he was born, he had never been toyed with like this before. Bai Fan was furious. At this moment, he had already forgotten Seventh Uncle's order to capture him alive. At this moment, he only wanted to capture Yuhauran and throw Yuhauran in front of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes. He wanted to let Yuhauran enjoy the feeling of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes forcefully sucking his blood. Yes. If he continued to use the Tengu's tracking secret technique, it would definitely damage his foundation and affect his future breakthrough to the exalted realm. However, after seeing Bai Fan's gloomy expression and hearing his orders that were filled with killing intent, the white dog could only helplessly obey. Thaling, I don't know if you've noticed a strange phenomenon. Yuhauran restrained his aura and tried his best to avoid some powerful exotic beast. As he hurried to the blood lake, he gradually noticed a strange phenomenon. What's the problem? Thaling carefully recalled some of his experiences after entering the Withering Blood mountain range. He did not notice anything strange. Thaling, after passing Shiquan, we're already in the depths of the Withering Blood mountain range. Along the way we've encountered almost 100 exotic beasts, but none of them have mutated like the life-devouring blood mosquitoes and the blood mountain frogs, Yuhauran reminded him. Yuhauran, could it be that the reason for the mutation of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes and the blood mountain frogs is in their nest? Yuhauran's reminder made Thaling immediately realize the crux of the problem. No, Yuhauran said as he shook his head and stealthily avoided a gigantic tail-blood scorpion that emitted the aura of a third tribulation quasi-venerable. The real mutation should be the life-devouring blood mosquitoes. The mutation of the blood mountain frogs came from the life-devouring blood mosquitoes they devoured. Yuhauran, could it be that you want to take the risk and explore the nest of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes after we're done with the training at the blood lake? Thaling guessed. Thaling, don't you want to? Yuhauran asked in return. Yes. Thaling replied without hiding his intentions. Thaling vaguely had a guess that something that could cause a fundamental change in the bloodline and grade of an entire tribe. The mutation of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes was very likely related to a certain treasure. If the mutation of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes was really related to that treasure, then it would bring unimaginable benefits to Yuhauran, who had the body of an ancestral witch. We're here. Just as Yuhauran and Thaling decided to end their training at the blood lake and head to the nest of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes to investigate the cause of the mutation, Thaling saw the blood lake that was nearly 30,000 meters long. He abruptly stopped about 100 meters away from the blood lake. This was also the spot where the ethereal mouse had bitten his trouser leg in his previous life, refusing to let him get close to the blood lake. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed the blood lake in front of him. Then, a fatal warning quickly emerged in his heart, causing Yuhauran's expression to change. Thaling, my sixth sense tells me that the blood lake in front of me is an extremely dangerous place where there is no return. No wonder no one can enter the blood lake. It's because of them. Without responding to Yuhauran's warning, Thaling used Emperor Wu's powerful divine thought to take the risk and enter the blood lake. After a careful inspection, he finally understood the source of the danger in the blood lake. Thaling, who are they? Yuhauran immediately asked as he quietly took a few steps back. Beast-eating fish, Thaling said with a serious expression. There are countless beast-eating fish in the blood lake. I see. After hearing that there were actually countless beast-eating fish living in the blood lake, Yuharan finally understood why his sixth sense had warned him that entering the blood lake would lead to certain death. Beast-eating fish weren't big, their grades weren't high, and their individual strength was very weak. A martial disciple could easily kill a beast-eating fish. Like the life-devouring blood mosquitoes, beast-eating fish were also a kind of carnivorous exotic beast that lived in group. When hunting, they were good at moving out as a whole, fearless of death, and charging forward bravely. Chapter 1155. In front of the blood lake in the withering Blood Mountain range, Thaling, are you sure that the blood beads produced by the Blood Mountain frog can avoid the attacks of the beast-eating fish? Yi Shiwen had thought that he could safely enter the blood lake by relying on the blood bead. Then, he could obtain the life and death concepts contained in the sword marks at the bottom of the lake. However, Yuharan was now facing the countless beast-eating fish in the blood lake. This was the first time in his life that he had felt so scared. Of course, Thaling replied confidently. However, Thaling knew that the beast-eating fish had shocked Yuharan too much when he saw the frightened expression on his face. So much so that he couldn't help but feel scared even though he had the mental state of a revered martial artist. Yi Shiwen wouldn't have taken the risk to enter the blood lake if he hadn't used living creatures as an example to prove the efficacy of the blood bead. At the thought of this, the pagoda spirit immediately used its powerful divine sense to capture a peak 7th grade Saint Realm blood-bellied red spider from a blood pine tree 300 miles away. Thaling took out a blood bead. He activated the special energy contained in the blood bead. Then, he forced the blood bead into the mouth of the blood-bellied red spider. Then, he threw the blood-bellied red spider into the blood lake. He used his divine sense to suppress it so that it couldn't escape from the lake. After 15 minutes, Thaling used his divine sense to get the blood-bellied red spider out of the blood lake. Then, he threw it in front of Yuharan. Thaling, activate the energy of the blood bead immediately. Yuharan believed that the energy of the blood bead could protect him after seeing that the blood-bellied red spider hadn't been attacked by the beast-eating fish. So, he immediately instructed Thaling in his sea of consciousness. The fatal warning from his sixth sense suddenly disappeared after the special energy contained in the blood bead concealed his aura. Yuharan didn't hesitate to cross the 100-meter distance between the blood-bellied red spider and his sixth sense. Then, he quickly walked to the edge of the blood lake. Bang! He jumped high into the blood lake. Then, he used his spirit power to control his body and started to sink rapidly. Thaling, why can the blood beads produced by the Blood Mountain frog avoid the attention of the beast-eating fish? Yuharan couldn't help but make guesses as he watched the beast-eating fish with sharp teeth swim past him, one after another while ignoring him. Could it be that the two of them share the same bloodline? Perhaps. Thaling, who was also unclear about the relationship between the two, agreed with Yuharan's conjecture that they shared the same bloodline. 100 meters. 300 meters. 700 meters. Thaling reminded him in surprise when he had sunk to a depth of more than 3,000 meters. His body was beginning to feel pain, and his breathing was gradually becoming difficult. Yuharan has reached the bottom of the lake. Heaving a sigh of relief, Yuharan accelerated his sinking speed. Only 20 seconds later, he felt a hard, wet, and slippery feeling, which told him that he had successfully reached the bottom of the blood lake. Yuharan, the bottom of the blood lake doesn't suppress your spirit power at all. At the same time, there are no beast-eating fish at the bottom of the lake. You can use your spirit power to observe the situation at the bottom of the lake. Just as his feet touched the bottom of the lake, the Tower Genie's voice rang in his ears. Since the beast-eating fish could devour a martial artist's spirit, Yuharan didn't dare to let his spirit power leave his sea of consciousness in order to avoid alerting the beast-eating fish. Now, after hearing Thaling's reminder, He quickly spread out his spirit power to observe the bottom of the lake carefully. Then, he was shocked by the countless eerie white bones at the bottom of the lake. There were hundreds of thousands of bones at the bottom of the lake, one connected to another, and one pressed on top of another. After recovering from his shock, Yuhaoran was immediately attracted by a huge sword mark that was about 100 meters wide and 10,000 meters long. Because only the sword mark covered the entire bottom of the lake, it wasn't covered by the eerie white bones. As he slowly swam to the edge of the sword mark, a familiar feeling made his spirit in his sea of consciousness tremble. This was because his spirit had sensed the aura of the life and death laws that originated from the same source. Yuhaoran, time is limited. Hurry up and comprehend the concept of life and death contained in the sword mark, and use it to improve your life and death laws. Seeing his spirit tremble in his sea of consciousness, Thaling knew that Yuhaoran had successfully sensed the concept of life and death contained in the sword mark, so he quickly reminded him. Nodding, Yuhaoran chose a red rock near the edge of the sword mark. Sitting cross-legged behind the rock, he began to use the concept of life and death contained in the sword mark to improve his life and death laws with all his might. Life, endlessly growing. Death, the extinction of life. Life, the end of life is death. Death, the end of death is life. Feeling the concept of life and concept of death contained in the sword mark, Yuhaoran gradually condensed a huge pattern above his spirit in his sea of consciousness. In the middle of the pattern there was a gap formed by an S, which directly divided the whole pattern into two halves. Half of the pattern was white and full of vitality. The other half of the pattern was black and exuded a deathly stillness. It can't be. Looking at the huge pattern slowly condensing above his spirit in his sea of consciousness, Thaling's face revealed a look of disbelief. The yin-yang diagram of life and death. This is the congenital magic weapon that Laozi, the #1 expert of the Middle Ages, used the power of laws he mastered to condense it into a congenital magic weapon that is not inferior to mine or the chaotic kappas. Could it be that Yuhaoran can use his own understanding of the life and death laws to recreate the destroyed yin-yang diagram of life and death? Thinking that Yuhaoran's 1 Qi into 3 Pure Ones cultivation method came from Laozi, and that the yin realm of yin-yang life and death that Yuhaoran accidentally obtained in the shop in Lanling City came from Laozi, the pagoda spirit realized that its previous idea was not impossible. If Yuhaoran could recreate the yin-yang diagram of life and death. Thinking of this, Thaling turned his head to look at his life source, and a joy of relief appeared in his eyes. Life and death are tit-for-tat opposites, but they also complement each other. If I can remove the life and death laws, and purely use moves, can I display the special relationship between life and death? With the concept of life and death contained in the sword mark, the speed of improvement of the dual laws of life and death became faster and faster. Yuhaoran found that he only needed to use half of his energy to improve his understanding of the laws. Thus, he separated half of his energy and began to use the concept of life and death in the sword mark to figure out how to create a sword technique that contained the concept of life and death, as well as the mysteries of life and death. Just as Yuhaoran was hiding at the bottom of the blood lake and immersing himself in the comprehension of the dual laws of life and death, the white dog, who did not hesitate to overdraw on the ancestral bloodline of the Tiango, finally found Yuhaoran's scent and followed him to the blood lake. Nearly 70% of the reason why the Withering Blood mountain range is a danger zone second only to the 10 Great Forbidden Zones is because of this blood lake. Looking at the calm surface of the lake, Bai Fan couldn't help but mutter to himself. Chapter 1156. In the Withering Blood mountain range, in front of the blood lake. Young Master Fan, can we retreat for a while? Just as Bai Fan was analyzing the situation of the blood lake, the frightened white dog couldn't help but remind him. White dog, what's wrong? Bai Fan asked with a frown as he looked at the white dog, whose body was trembling from extreme fear. Young Master Fan, The blood lake in front of me gives this dog a feeling of extreme danger. It's as if as long as I take a step closer, there will be fatal danger. The white dog said with increasing fear. White dog, as the descendant of the guardian beast of my white tiger clan, are you so afraid of death? The white dog's overly cowardly reaction made Bai Fan extremely dissatisfied as he reprimanded it. Young Master Fan, Facing Bai Fan's dissatisfied reprimand, the white dog opened its mouth to refute. Suddenly, its eyes widened as it looked behind Bai Fan, its eyes filled with shock. The white dog's shocked reaction immediately aroused Bai Fan's vigilance. In an instant, he mobilized all of his strength and wanted to turn around, but an intense pain came from his left shoulder. Turning his head to take a look, he saw a palm-sized fish with 2 rows of sharp teeth that was desperately tearing at the flesh on his left shoulder. Beast-eating fish. When he saw that the small fish biting his left shoulder was the beast-eating fish that caused people to tremble in fear, Bai Fan finally understood the reason for the white dog's fear. At the same time, he immediately sent the beast-eating fish flying with his palm. However, when he raised his head to look at the blood lake, he was just like the white dog, his face filled with extreme fear. This was because the originally calm surface of the blood lake was continuously surging with waves that were several meters tall and tens of meters tall. Accompanied by countless waves, thousands, tens of thousands, and even hundreds of thousands of beast-eating fish were grinding their sharp teeth as they charged towards him and the white dog. White dog, immediately overdraw all of the white tiger's bloodline and bring this young master out of this encirclement. Bai Fan quickly put on his gloves and sent the dozens of beast-eating fish in front of him flying as he immediately ordered the white dog behind him. However, there was no response, which made Bai Fan realize that something was wrong. He quickly turned his head to take a look, but found that the white dog had already left the blood lake. White dog, you dare to run away before the battle. This young master will definitely pull out your tendons and peel off your skin. Seeing the white dog escape the attack range of the beast-eating fish, Bai Fan immediately threatened in a rage. He pulled out his own tendons and peeled off his own skin. After hearing about Bai Fan's punishment and thinking about how his loyalty to the White Tiger clan had been rewarded with such a miserable ending, a hint of viciousness flashed across the white dog's eyes. He had originally planned to take the risk and return to the blood lake to rescue Bai Fan. With a shake of its body, the white dog instantly returned to its huge body that was neither a tiger nor a dog. It then opened its mouth and spat out a white ball of energy at Bai Fan. Although the white energy couldn't really hurt Bai Fan, it could block his path of retreat, making it impossible for him to escape the encirclement of the beast-eating fish. By the time Bai Fan dispersed the white ball of energy, the surrounding area was already filled with beast-eating fish grinding their sharp teeth. White dog, you howren, I, Bai Fan, will not let you off even if I become a ghost. Bai Fan roared hoarsely as he was drowned by the countless beast-eating fish. With the black tortoise ancestor's innate divination skills, he will be able to calculate what I just did sooner or later. Seeing the hundreds of thousands of beast-eating fish slowly return to the blood lake with the lake water, and no trace of Bai Fan's aura, the white dog worriedly muttered to himself. With the way the White Tiger clan treats traitors, if I return to the White Tiger's secret realm, I'm afraid I'll end up like Bai Fan. Not only will my soul be destroyed, but I won't even have the chance to reincarnate. As the white dog muttered to himself, he raised his head and glanced at the depths of the mountain range beyond the blood lake. A sinister look flashed across his eyes. I'll go all out. After inwardly encouraging himself, the white dog immediately soared into the air. At a height of 1,000 meters above the blood lake, he leaped over the blood lake and entered the depths of the withering blood mountain range. At the bottom of the blood lake, 9 deaths, 1 life. With his eyes tightly shut and his index finger acting as a sword, Yuhauran faced the sword scar in front of him and used the sword technique, he had just created using the concept of life and death. The sword technique, which contained 90% of the concept of death and 10% of the concept of life, chopped down on a huge red rock in the sword scar. 90% of the red rock instantly turned black, and the remaining 10% was replaced by white. By the time Yuhaoran retracted his finger, 90% of the black rock had turned into dust, and the remaining 10% of the white rock had a trace of green. Concepts, profound mysteries, and laws originally belonged to the power of advancing one level at a time. But why is it that through a breakthrough in realm, it can break the rules of advancement? Opening his eyes and looking at the white rock that had a trace of green, Yuhaoran's eyes were filled with a trace of doubt as he asked himself this question. Could it be that concepts, profound mysteries, and laws all belong to the same origin? It's just that there's a huge difference in power, causing them to be separated into different levels? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that his previous conjecture was correct. The doubt in Yuhaoran's eyes was gradually replaced by pleasant surprise. The split half of his consciousness continued to split into another half. A quarter of his consciousness comprehended the concept of life and death and continued to perfect the sword technique that he had just created. A quarter of his consciousness entered his consciousness and started to read the large number of books and jade slips that he had obtained from the Gu Liang clan's treasury. The Tao that can be Tao is not an ordinary Tao. The essence Tao and the body Tao are the foundation Tao, supplemented by the heart Tao and the soul Tao. Together, they form a complete martial Tao. The essence Tao, the body Tao, the heart Tao, the soul Tao, and the law Tao can be independent and form a single cultivation system. They can also be combined to form a completely new cultivation system. The martial Tao is like the essence Tao and the body Tao. Combining the experiences of his previous life and the gains of this life, a completely new cultivation system, a mental cultivation method and martial technique that could not be graded for now but had unlimited potential for advancement, quickly took shape in Yuhaoran's mind. When the mental cultivation method that he had created truly took shape and could help him break through to the martial saint realm, Yuhaoran reorganized the mental cultivation method and martial technique that he had created. He could not help but sigh in his heart. Since the mental cultivation method cannot be graded, but it has unlimited potential for advancement. I have the gains of this life and the experiences of my previous life. In that case, this mental cultivation method that I have created shall be called the Heavenly Mandate Mental Cultivation Method. Just as Yuhaoran named the mental cultivation method and martial technique that he had created, the Heavenly Tao's Law Providence, which had been neither close nor distant to him, suddenly became intimate with him. Accompanied by the intimacy of the Heavenly Tao's Law Providence, he could now split another half of his consciousness to comprehend the concept of life and death in the sword mark. Facing the Heavenly Mandate Mental Cultivation method that he had created and the changes in the Heavenly Tao's Law Providence, the joy that surged in Yuhaoran's heart quickly calmed down. Chapter 1157. In the Study of the Palace in Xianyang City. After listening to Ting Yunjie's description of how the ancestor of the celestial martial sect had been severely injured in Death Valley, Emperor Qin's shocked expression was gradually replaced by regret. Yunjie, my nephew, it's all my fault. Sitting on the dragon throne, Emperor Qin blamed himself with guilt. Your Majesty, the ancestor was severely injured because I coveted the nine-tailed dragon sunflower that could refine the supreme Huashao pill. It has nothing to do with your Majesty. After hearing Emperor Qin's guilty self-blame, Ting Yunjie immediately pushed the blame to himself and comforted him. Yunjie, my nephew, you don't know that I've already guessed that you. After that, Emperor Qin told Ting Yunjie in detail about Yuhaoran's warning about the dangers in Death Valley and the long-armed ape. Your Majesty, you don't have to worry about it. After hearing Emperor Qin's detailed explanation, Ting Yunjie suddenly felt a little resentful toward him. However, thinking about it carefully, even if he had heard Yuhauran's warning, he would not have thought that the ape would have such powerful strength to be able to severely injure the ancestor, who was about to reach the level of Emperor Wu. Therefore, Ting Yunjie, who had figured everything out, continued to comfort him. Yunjie, my nephew, you don't have to worry too much. When the Emperor's son-in-law secretly left Twin Ox Mountain, he used the communication Jade Charm to inform Ling Fei that he would return to Xianying City in 10 days or half a month. Self-blame was just a moment of guilt. Therefore, in the face of Ting Yunjie's comfort, Emperor Qin quickly adjusted his mood and comforted him with a smile. It seems that I'll have to trouble your majesty for a while. Ting Yunjie nodded and said helplessly. Ever since Yuhauran entrusted the Chamber of Commerce in Heavenly Earth to auction the Supreme Huashao Pill, he suddenly disappeared from Twin Ox Mountain. No one knew how he disappeared or where he went. At the same time, there were also many people who were suspicious. They suspected that some of the martial venerables from the Seven Top sects had secretly kidnapped Yuhauran and forced him to refine pills for his family and grandmasters. Fortunately, Emperor Qin had revealed Yuhauran's whereabouts just now. After knowing that nothing had happened to him, Ting Yunjie patiently waited for him to return to Xianying City. Nephew Yunjie, you're being too polite. Emperor Qin arranged with a smile. Mount Shuangniu in front of Yiyuan Pavilion. Investigate. Investigate with all your might. You must find out what happened to Yu Zongshi. A white-haired old man whose cultivation had reached the peak of the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm ordered the 5 people in front of him. Whether the clan head can successfully break through to Martial Saint before the start of the 5 regions' hidden dragon ranking all depends on Yu Zongshi. Great Elder, it is important to find Yu Zongshi's whereabouts. However, isn't the auction held by the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce a month later even more important? A martial saint in the beginning stage cautiously reminded. After all, a complete third-rank third-grade Huazuan pill will appear in the auction this time. Deacon Hong, our Zhang clan is only a small clan with less than 10,000 years of history. With our clan's wealth and confidence, do you think we can compete with those big clans with tens of thousands of years of history, or even millions of years of history? The white-haired old man who was addressed as the Great Elder asked with a cold smile. Yes, I will mobilize everyone to track down Yu Zongshi's whereabouts. After hearing the Great Elder's reminder, the middle-aged man who was addressed as Deacon Hong suddenly thought of the experts who had appeared in Mount Shuangniu recently. He could not help but shudder as he hurriedly responded to the order. Looking at the 5 subordinates who hurriedly left, the Great Elder raised his head and looked at Yiyuan Pavilion, which was tightly shut. His eyes revealed a worried expression. Life and death and death. Yuhauran stretched out his hand towards a beast-eating fish that Thaling had captured with his mind. He displayed the martial skill of the dual laws of life and death that he had comprehended. Seeing the beast-eating fish go through the process of life and death 9 times, a look of surprise appeared on its face. Yuhauran, 9 is the limit. Being able to go through 9 cycles of life and death is enough to show that your dual laws of life and death have reached the perfection stage. Thaling reminded happily as he also looked at the beast-eating fish that had gone through 9 cycles of life and death. Since the dual laws of life and death have reached the perfection stage, then you can use the treasures that you have obtained some time ago to increase your cultivation and strength. Before the hidden dragon ranking starts in the southern region, my cultivation and strength will reach the limit of the peak of the 9th grade martial saint. I know. Nodding his head, Yuhauran agreed with Thaling's reminder. At the same time, he raised his head and looked at the sword mark in front of him that was filled with the life and death concept. The dual laws of life and death have reached the perfection stage. The self-created sword art of 9 deaths and life and death snatch is about to be perfected. This time's trial at the Blood Lake can be considered to have gained a lot. Then, he suddenly remembered the time limit that the blood bead's energy had on him and hurriedly asked, "Thowling, how long did I spend in seclusion this time?" "You Howren, we have to leave the blood lake immediately." After hearing Yu Howren's question, Thowling immediately checked the number of blood beads in the victor. When he found that the last blood bead had been used, he hurriedly reminded, "At most 5 minutes we will lose the protection of the blood bead." After hearing Thowling's reminder, Yu Howren immediately stopped cultivating and stood up. Then, he suddenly stomped his feet and turned into a water arrow that shot towards the blood lake's surface. Fortunately, the blood lake's depth was only about 3,000 meters. In less than 3 minutes, he successfully left the blood lake and floated 1,000 meters above the blood lake's surface. "Yu Howren, where are we going next?" Looking at Yu Howren, who was floating in the air above the blood lake, Thowling asked. "Back to the spring. First, use the pills to attract the life-devouring blood mosquitoes. Then, follow them to find their nest and find out the reason for their mutation." Without thinking too much, Yu Howren turned around and flew towards the spring where he killed the blood mountain frogs while explaining to Thowling. But when he was about to leave the blood lake, he unexpectedly saw a very familiar jade pendant on the shore of the blood lake. He reached out and sucked hard at the jade pendant. The jade pendant that was left on the shore of the blood lake fell into his hand. When he saw the lifelike white tiger carved on the back of the jade pendant, Yu Howren knew that this jade pendant came from Bai Fan. "Thowling, that Bai kid couldn't have been eaten by the beast-eating fish, right?" Holding the jade pendant in his hand, Yu Howren asked in disbelief. After all, Bai Fan was not only a young talent from the White Tiger clan, but also a monstrous genius whose strength was infinitely close to the martial venerable realm. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have been so unlucky. Who knows? Chapter 1158. Beside the stream in the withering Blood Mountain Range. Yu Howren took out an elixir that could lure the life-devouring blood mosquitoes and placed it in the spot where it had attracted them before. Then, he quietly hid in a crack between the rocks and waited. He didn't have to wait for a long time. After about 10 minutes, buzzing sounds gradually began to appear around the stream. However, the life-devouring blood mosquitoes gathered around the stream were affected by the aura of the hundreds of blood-peak frog corpses around the elixir. They didn't dare to rashly approach it. However, when the number of life-devouring blood mosquitoes exceeded 100,000 and the unique smell of the elixir became stronger and stronger, the temptation finally overcame the fear in their hearts. More than 100,000 life-devouring blood mosquitoes finally rushed desperately toward the elixir that emitted the unique smell among the rocks in the stream. The elixir was only the size of a longan fruit. In the face of more than 100,000 life-devouring blood mosquitoes, it didn't even last a tenth of a second before completely disappearing without a trace. Yu Howren, the life-devouring blood mosquitoes are very sensitive to the aura of living creatures. You and I aren't very sure whether their senses have improved after the mutation. Seeing the buzzing life-devouring blood mosquitoes about to fly away from the stream, Yu Howren restrained his aura. When he was about to quietly follow them, Thowling suddenly reminded him in his sea of consciousness. "So, to avoid any accidents, it's best for you to enter the victor now. Then, I'll control the victor to follow the life-devouring blood mosquitoes." Thinking back to when Bai Fan and White Dog were surrounded by tens of thousands of life-devouring blood mosquitoes, they had to overdraw 1/3 of the White Tiger bloodline in exchange for the power of a martial venerable to break out of the encirclement. Yu Howren didn't force himself. After nodding in agreement with Thowling's suggestion, he touched the imprint in his sea of consciousness with his mind and entered the victor with his physical body. After Yu Howren entered the victor, Thowling immediately shrunk the size of the victor. Then, he controlled the victor to land on a level 3 King Realm victor, which was the size of 2 watermelons. He ordered the victor to return to its nest. Through Victor's space, Yu Howren saw the life-devouring blood mosquitoes return to their nest. Seeing that they had actually crossed the 10,000-meter-long blood lake, he immediately rejoiced. To be able to sniff out the unique smell of the pill from such a long distance was enough to prove that the life-devouring blood mosquito's sense of smell had far surpassed his imagination. Even if he used a secret technique to conceal his aura, he might not be able to avoid the life-devouring blood mosquito's sense of smell. In the end, it was very likely that not only would they be unable to track him down, they might even be surrounded by 100,000 life-devouring blood mosquitoes. By the time the life-devouring blood mosquitoes had crossed the blood lake and traveled another 150 kilometers into the mountain range, Yuhauran was completely stunned. The turbid and murky scene that he had imagined did not appear. Instead, he saw a sea of flowers that stretched as far as the eye could see, which made him mistakenly think that he was hallucinating. Yuhauran forcefully rubbed his eyes. Then, through Victor's space, he looked at the beautiful scene of countless flowers before him. He smiled bitterly as he asked Thaling, "Thaling, is there something wrong with my eyes?" "Yuhauran, although there's nothing wrong with your eyes, I'm afraid that the entire Withering Blood mountain range is going to be in big trouble," Thaling said gravely in response to Yuhauran's question. "What's going on?" Yuhauran immediately asked. "Look at the petals and flower paths of every flower," Thaling reminded as he pointed at the flowers that the life-devouring blood mosquitoes had landed on. The densely packed insect eggs that covered the petals and flower paths made Yuhauran immediately guess that Thaling had mentioned that the Withering Blood mountain range was going to be in big trouble. Yuhauran signaled Thaling to remove the restriction on Victor's divine sense. He immediately spread out his divine sense and began to inspect all the flowers within a radius of tens of kilometers. The result was the same as the flowers that they were resting on. The petals and flower paths were densely packed with insect eggs. If all the eggs of so many life-devouring blood mosquitoes hatched, not to mention the Withering Blood mountain range, the entire profound sky continent would be in danger from the life-devouring blood mosquitoes. When he thought of the endless life-devouring blood mosquitoes that would appear in the profound sky continent and fill the sky, he thought of the countless life-devouring blood mosquitoes that would appear in the sky. Yuhauran couldn't help but shudder when he thought of the countless living beings that had died tragically under the life-devouring blood mosquitoes' thin, sharp mouths. At this moment, on a flower petal not far away, thousands of insect eggs that were arranged side by side burst open one after another. Life-devouring blood mosquitoes that were the size of flies hatched one after another and began to devour the petals. As the petals were continuously devoured, the bodies of the life-devouring blood mosquitoes gradually grew larger and their auras continuously strengthened. In a short 30 seconds, nearly 2,000 apple-sized life-devouring blood mosquitoes that had reached the first rank of the Grandmaster realm flew out of the flower petals and towards the outskirts of the Withering Blood mountain range. As for the petals that had been devoured, they recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Thaling, what kind of spirit flowers are these? Why are they able to become the breeding grounds for the life-devouring blood mosquitoes to lay their eggs?" Yuhauran asked in shock as he pointed at the petals that had been devoured and recovered in a short period of time. The blood spirit body sculpting flower is a spirit flower that can provide a large amount of life force. Thaling explained. Yuhauran frowned and carefully thought back. He discovered that there was no record of the blood spirit body sculpting flower in his memories. "Thaling, what grade is the blood spirit body sculpting flower? Apart from providing a large amount of life force, does it have any other effects?" "The blood spirit body sculpting flower is a first-rank divine flower. Apart from providing life force, it can also assist in a breakthrough in the physical body grade." Thaling then turned to look at Yuhauran and said excitedly, "Yuhauran, if you can transplant the blood spirit body sculpting flower into your body, you won't need to deliberately cultivate your physical body in the future. Your physical body grade will easily break through to the Emperor Wu realm." Yuhauran stared at Thaling with a dumbfounded expression. His heart was filled with shock. The blood spirit body sculpting flower was a first-rank divine flower. In his previous life, he had explored many ruins from the ancient era, the middle era, and the modern era. He had also ventured into the 10 great forbidden lands, but he had never even seen a grade 2 spiritual herb, let alone a grade 1 blood spirit body sculpting flower. Moreover, the blood spirit body sculpting flower's powerful effect of assisting in the advancement of the physical body grade to the Emperor Wu realm made him even more ecstatic. Thaling, there are so many blood spirit body sculpting flowers. If I transplant all of them into the bodies of my family and friends, wouldn't I be able to create countless powerful experts with the physical body of Emperor Wu realm? Yu Haoran was so excited that his voice began to tremble as he pointed at the sea of blood spirit body sculpting flowers. Chapter 1159. In the depths of the withering blood mountain range, in the sea of flowers. Isn't that the case? Faced with Thaling's sarcasm, Yu Haoran asked doubtfully. Thaling did not even bother to reply to Yu Haoran's question. He directly used his powerful divine sense to break off a flower that did not have any insect eggs. Then, he handed it to Yu Haoran, indicating for him to absorb the life force within the flower to determine whether or not the flower before him was a rank 1 blood spirit body sculpting flower. Pinching the disc-sized flower in his hand, he circulated the astral mantra and began to absorb the vigorous life force within the flower. As the life force within the flower was continuously absorbed into his fleshly body, which had just reached the early 6th grade of the martial saint realm, rapidly rose like a rocket. By the time the flower in his hand had completely withered, his fleshly body had already reached the peak of the 8th grade of the martial saint realm. Although the vigorous life force within the flower could be said to be a terrifying boost to the fleshly body's grade, it was far from having the heaven-defying effect of a rank 1 blood spirit body sculpting flower. Thaling, could it be that these spirit flowers before me are only the branches of the main body of the blood spirit body sculpting flower? Reaching out to crush the withered flower, watching the powder slowly drift down, a thought instantly flashed through Yu Haoran's mind. That's right. Nodding his head, Thaling looked at the boundless sea of flowers and reminded with a somewhat grave tone. Whether it is the main body of the blood spirit body sculpting flower or its branches, both are exactly the same regardless of size, shape, or color. Wanting to find the main body of a rank 1 blood spirit body sculpting flower in the sea of flowers before us is probably not an easy task. The problem Thaling had just mentioned caused Yu Haoran to sink into deep thought. He pondered how to find the main body of the blood spirit body sculpting flower that could help his fleshly body break through the Emperor Wu's realm from the boundless sea of flowers. At this moment, thousands of insect eggs on a flower petal not far away began to hatch. As he watched the hatched life-devouring blood mosquitoes begin to devour the flower petals, a sense of unease welled up in his heart. Thaling, please help me catch a newly hatched life-devouring blood mosquito. Yu Haoran instructed as he pointed at the life-devouring blood mosquito that was devouring the flower petals. Knowing that Yu Haoran had amazing insight and could find the key to the problem from some subtle details, Thaling did not hesitate to use his divine will to capture a life-devouring blood mosquito the size of a grain of rice and send it to him. Yu Haoran used his origin energy to freeze the life-devouring blood mosquitoes that were the size of a grain of rice. He then used his divine perception to carefully examine them. Subsequently, a trace of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. Thaling, use Emperor Wu's powerful divine sense to capture a King Realm life-devouring blood mosquito. Yu Haoran raised his head and continued to instruct Thaling. Without any hesitation, Thaling used his powerful divine perception to quickly capture a life-devouring blood mosquito at the peak of the 9th level King Realm. After carefully examining the life-devouring blood mosquito at the peak of the 9th level King Realm with his divine perception, the pleasant surprise in Yu Haoran's eyes was replaced by doubt. through Victor's space. He raised his head and looked at the boundless sea of flowers and the life-devouring blood mosquitoes that flew from time to time. Thaling could not help but ask after seeing Yuhauran's strange reaction from pleasant surprise to doubt, "Yuhauran, what's wrong with you?" Withdrawing his gaze from the sea of flowers, Yuhauran looked at Thaling and asked, "Thaling, how do you think the ordinary blood mosquitoes mutated into life-devouring blood mosquitoes?" In the face of Yuhauran's inquiry, Thaling thought for a while and finally decided to reveal the treasure he knew. He wanted to see if Yuhauran could find the original body of the blood spirit body shaping flower in the sea of flowers through the origin of the treasure. Yuhauran, from ancient times until now, there are only a few known treasures that can cause bloodline changes. And there are only a few treasures that can cause bloodline changes on a large scale. Therefore, I suspect that the real reason for the bloodline mutation of the blood mosquitoes is probably that there is a large blood soul stone hidden in the sea of flowers. Thaling, is it the blood soul stone that is said to be able to purify bloodlines and make them return to their ancestors? After hearing Thaling mention the blood soul stone, a memory of the blood soul stone flashed through Yuhauran's mind. That's right. As he nodded to confirm, Thaling continued to explain. Although the blood spirit body molding flower is a rank 1 first grade and can produce so many branched flowers, the blood spirit body molding flower itself does not have the ability to mutate the bloodline of living beings. Thaling, it seems that I already know how to find the original body of the blood spirit body shaping flower. After hearing Thaling's further explanation, Yuhauran's gradually clear train of thought made a happy smile appear on his face. Hearing that Yuhauran had a way to find the original body of the blood spirit body shaping flower, Thaling immediately asked excitedly, "Oh, how do you find it?" Without immediately answering Thaling's question, Yuhauran smiled and said, "Thaling, use your divine sense to carefully observe the constitution of these two blood-devouring mosquitoes." After scanning the two blood-devouring mosquitoes of different grades with his divine sense, Thaling said in confusion, "They are exactly the same, there is no difference at all. In that case, observe the blood-devouring mosquito that the victor is residing in." Pointing to the blood-devouring mosquitoes that had crawled on the flower and led them to the sea of flowers, Yuhauran continued to remind him with a smile. After scanning the blood-devouring mosquitoes that the victor was residing in with his divine sense, Thaling's face was filled with shock. Then, he said in surprise, "I understand now. It turns out that the newly hatched blood-devouring mosquitoes are just ordinary blood-devouring mosquitoes. However, because the vitality in their bodies is too exuberant, it is impossible to distinguish their true constitution through their aura. Only those blood-devouring mosquitoes that have truly devoured the original body of the blood spirit body shaping flower will have their constitution upgraded to blood-devouring mosquitoes. Thaling, I'll have to trouble you from now on." Nodding, Yuhauran said with a relaxed expression, "Got it." Nodding, Thaling directly spread out Emperor Wu's divine sense to the limit and began to trace the path of those upgraded blood-devouring mosquitoes. Then, he narrowed down the scope of finding the original body of the blood spirit body shaping flower. Woof, woof, woof. Just as Thaling was tracing the path of the blood-devouring mosquitoes, a familiar dog bark suddenly came from the depths of the sea of flowers. Without the slightest hesitation, his divine sense immediately passed through the victor and quickly reached the depths of the sea of flowers, where he saw the white dog that was desperately resisting the attacks of countless blood-devouring mosquitoes. Looking at the heavenly hound that was covered in wounds and fighting alone, and thinking of the white tiger jade pendant that he had picked up on the shore of the blood lake, Yuhauran's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. However, the look of doubt did not last for too long before it was replaced by the thought of whether or not to rescue the white dog. This was because the white dog had the bloodlines of both the white tiger and the heavenly hound. Furthermore, as a law enforcer, it had left the white tiger encampment to hunt him down. This meant that its position in the white tiger family was not low. It should know a lot about the white tiger family. Chapter 1160. In the depths of the withering blood mountain range, in the sea of flowers. Although Yuhauran wanted to save the dog, he didn't know what to do as more and more life-devouring blood mosquitoes gathered. Helpless, he could only ask for Thaling's help. After all, there was only one way to save the white dog from the special situation in the sea of flowers, and that was to take the risk and absorb it into the victor. However, this required Thaling's approval. Moreover, how could they avoid exposing the victor's existence? Thaling had to act personally. Simple. Thaling didn't feel troubled at all when he heard Yuhauran's request for help. First, he used his powerful divine sense to knock out the heavily injured white dog, who could die at any moment. Then, he controlled the victor to form an independent space, and threw the unconscious white dog into it. Yuhauran, I'll leave the rest to you. After instructing Yuhauran, Thaling continued to track down the life-devouring blood mosquito's movements. He wanted to find the main body of the blood spirit shaper flower and the blood soul stone buried beneath it. Although the white dog was heavily injured and its aura had dropped to the 9th rank of the Emperor realm, Yuhauran didn't dare be careless when he considered the fact that it contained the bloodlines of the divine beast White Tiger and the vicious beast Heavenly Hound, as well as its strength that was close to the martial sovereign realm. His fingers quickly formed a sealing technique. Even after using the technique to completely seal the white dog, he still didn't feel at ease. Then, he took out a dozen or so talismans used to seal spirit veins from his storage ring and stuck them all on the white dog's body. After doing all this, he finally felt at ease and used a spirit-calming pill to awaken the unconscious white dog. You're the human pill master, Yuhauran, who can refine the supreme transformation pill. The white dog slowly opened its eyes. It subconsciously thought that it was still fighting the life-devouring blood mosquitoes, so it hurriedly mobilized its demonic and soul force to resist. To its horror, it realized that it had been completely sealed. It hurriedly raised its head to look. After seeing the young man sitting cross-legged in front of it, who looked exactly the same as the image provided by the white tiger, the white dog suddenly climbed down quietly and asked in a relaxed manner, "White dog, aren't you afraid that I'll kill you right now?" Seeing the white dog suddenly relax, Yuhauran was confused and couldn't help but ask in fear, "Whatever?" The white dog waved its paw and said nonchalantly. The white dog's casual attitude of not fearing death completely confused Yuhauran. Originally, he had wanted to use the acupoint sealing method to torture him cruelly and then force him to reveal the secrets of the White Tiger clan, but his plan was also forcefully interrupted. Since he couldn't use torture for the time being, Yuhauran could only temporarily change his strategy and ask in the tone of a friend. "White dog, tell me in detail what you encountered after Shi Quan broke out of the encirclement." The white dog raised its head and glanced at Yuhauran. A trace of confusion flashed through its eyes. It didn't understand why Yuhauran, who had captured and sealed it alive, would treat it so gently. Of course, regardless of whether Yuhauran's attitude was gentle or cruel, the white dog had no intention of hiding anything. It truthfully recounted everything that had happened after Shi Quan broke out of the encirclement. Yuhauran only had 2 words for Bai Fan's death under the siege of the Blood Lake's beast-eating fish. Serves him right. As for the white dog's desertion and betrayal, Yuhauran was able to understand it. It was different from how one's soul was destroyed. After being torn apart and devoured by the beast-eating fish, not only would the physical body and soul completely die, but even the 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls would also be devoured by the beast-eating fish. The 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls were the foundation of a living being's soul and also the foundation of a living being's reincarnation. No matter who it was, when faced with the danger of having their 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls destroyed and completely losing their chance of reincarnation, they would probably consider carefully. Moreover, no matter how strong the white dog was, it was only a strange beast. It had the instinctive fear of facing its natural enemy. Moreover, it wasn't that the white dog didn't want to loyally protect its master. It was just that Bai Fan's angry threats had completely chilled its heart, and in the end, it had the impulse to betray its master. White dog, since you've already betrayed the White Tiger clan, you don't have the obligation to pledge your loyalty. Then, can you tell me some secrets about the White Tiger clan? Looking at the white dog crawling back to the ground, its eyes flashing with nostalgia, fear, anger, and confusion, Yuhauran tried to ask after careful consideration. Shaking its head, the white dog's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. In name, I'm the guardian divine beast of the White Tiger clan, but in reality, I'm not even comparable to the pets raised by the young masters and young ladies of the White Tiger clan. Raising its head to look at Yuhauran, the white dog's eyes revealed a trace of a sad and bitter smile as it spoke. Yuhauran, even if I want to tell you all the secrets of the White Tiger clan right now, the shackles left in my sea of consciousness will destroy my soul at the first moment. Since that's the case, I won't ask any more questions. With the strength and methods of the 4 great guardian clans, even if Thaling personally acted, it would be difficult for him to easily undo the shackles in the white dog's sea of consciousness in a short period of time. Therefore, after Yuhauran extinguished the thought of using the white dog to inquire about the secrets of the White Tiger clan, he looked at the pitiful white dog and finally asked softly, "White dog, what are your plans? You won't kill me?" Hearing Yuhauran's interrogation, the white dog suddenly stood up, its eyes filled with disbelief as it asked, "Although you're the enforcer sent by the White Tiger clan to kill me, we haven't formally fought after all, and there's no unresolvable hatred between us." Facing the white dog's incredulous interrogation, Yuhauran smiled as he explained, "Moreover, you've betrayed the White Tiger clan now, so you'll definitely be hunted down by the experts of the White Tiger clan. You can consider it as sharing some of the firepower for me. Therefore, it's reasonable to let you live." Facing Yuhauran's explanation, the white dog suddenly fell into silence. Following that, it occasionally raised its head to glance at Yuhauran, and occasionally lowered its head to ponder. After nearly 10 minutes of pondering, the white dog suddenly straightened its body and said, "Just 3 hours ago, I've already used a secret bloodline overdraft technique to completely remove all of the White Tiger's bloodline in my body. At this very moment, I only belong to the descendant of my ancestor, the Heavenly Dog." Not understanding why it would randomly say such words to him, Yuhauran looked at the white dog with a puzzled expression. "Yuhauran, although I only have the Heavenly Dog's bloodline left and my strength has fallen to the peak of the 9th grade martial saint, the Heavenly Dog's bloodline that replaces the White Tiger's bloodline will allow me to return to my peak in a month's time. Within 3 months, I'll break through to the martial saint realm and have a 50% chance of becoming an emperor in the future." Speaking until here, the white dog suddenly lowered its head and indicated with a docile attitude. Chapter 1161. In the depths of the withering Blood Mountain Range, in the Sea of Flowers. Looking at the white dog that was willing to become his pet beast, Yuhauran couldn't help but shake his head and refuse with a bitter smile. "White dog, thank you for your trust, but I'm really sorry. I have to reject your request." "Why?" The white dog raised its head abruptly and asked in confusion. It possessed the bloodline of the ancient ferocious beast, the Heavenly Hound, and the secret technique of the White Tiger's guardian clan. It had the potential to reach the Emperor realm in the future. It should be a pet beast that everyone desired. Using his will to wake up the sleeping black bear in the pet beast space and make it appear in front of the white dog, there was no need to say anything else. The white dog also knew the reason for its rejection. Of course, waking up the black bear was only a means of rejection. In fact, Yuhauran didn't want to sign a pet beast contract with the white dog. Other than the fact that it had an unbreakable relationship with the White Tiger clan, it was also because he felt that the white dog was too scheming and calculating. This made him instinctively suspicious. Even after they signed a pet beast contract, this suspicion couldn't be easily erased. Looking at the black bear that appeared in front of it, the white dog's eyes revealed a disappointed expression. It knew that it had lost its only chance to form a close relationship with Yuhauran. However, if it wanted to escape the White Tiger clan's pursuit, to quickly advance to a higher level, and to truly control its own fate, this alchemy genius that the White Tiger clan's venerable one was afraid of was its only chance. Since he couldn't use the pet beast contract to get closer to Yuhauran, he had to find a way to stay behind. Then, he would have to rely on his performance and his loyalty to win Yuhauran's trust. Only then would he be able to gain Yuhauran's support. Thinking of this, the Heavenly Hound raised its head to look at Yuhauran and asked in a negotiating tone. "Yu Zongshi, if I can tell you a secret about this sea of flowers, can you let me stay by your side temporarily? White Dog, do you know where the blood spirit body shaping flower's main body is?" Yuhauran immediately guessed the secret that the Heavenly Hound was talking about when he recalled that it had a heaven-defying sense of smell. He quickly asked in surprise, "I don't know what the true form of the blood spirit body shaping flower is, but I know what controls the existence of the countless flowers in this sea of flowers." The white dog shook its head and then nodded. "Thaling, can you keep Tengu by your side?" Yuhauran called back Thaling, who was searching for the blood spirit shaper flower, and told him what had just happened. He hoped that Thaling could help him make a decision. "Agree to it," Thaling said after thinking for a while. "All right, you can stay with me from now on," Yuhauran said to the white dog with a smile, without asking why Thaling agreed to let the white dog stay. After hearing Yuhauran's agreement, the white dog's eyes were filled with surprise as it told Yuhauran about the secret that it had discovered with its powerful sense of smell after accidentally entering the sea of flowers. "Found it!" Thaling immediately found the location of the blood spirit body shaping flower's main body after hearing the white dog's secret. However, he immediately retracted his spiritual sense like a bird startled by the twang of a bow, and further reduced the size of the victor. "Thaling, what's wrong?" It was the first time in his life that he had seen Thaling so panicked, and Yuhauran couldn't help but feel nervous. No wonder the blood spirit body shaping flower is already a first-rank divine flower, but it still can't give birth to a complete consciousness of its own. It's all because of it. Thaling ignored Yuhauran's question and muttered to himself with a serious expression. Then, he mobilized a portion of the victor's energy and took the risk to get closer to the blood spirit body shaping flower's main body. After a careful inspection, Thaling instructed Yuhauran. "Yuhauran, leave." "Why?" Yuhauran didn't understand and asked. "Because in the center of the blood spirit body shaping flower's main body, there's a blood-devouring mosquito at the peak of the third rank of the Great Emperor realm," Thaling said with a bitter smile. Sizzle! Yuhauran couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He immediately nodded and agreed to leave without any hesitation. Thaling used his powerful spiritual sense to kill the blood-devouring mosquito and controlled it to quickly fly away from the sea of flowers and the blood sea. After that, he signaled to Yuhauran that he could leave the victor's space. "White Dog, I'll remove the seal in your body now." After reminding the white dog, Yuhauran used the opportunity to remove the seal in the white dog's body. While the white dog was temporarily blind, he had the tower genie send them out of the tower. "We haven't left the Withering Blood Mountain range yet," the white dog exclaimed in shock when it saw the stream surrounded by the blood-devouring mosquito. "Yes." Nodding his head, Yuhauran lied without blushing or skipping a beat. "When I used a special secret technique to take the risk to save you, I was chased by hundreds of thousands of blood-devouring mosquitoes. I could only hide in an independent space under the stream for the time being." "Yu Zongshi, thank you." Hearing that Yuhauran had been chased by hundreds of thousands of blood-devouring mosquitoes in order to save it, the white dog was grateful and wagged its tail in gratitude. Yuhauran waved his hand to indicate that the white dog didn't need to be so courteous. He turned his head to look into the depths of the mountain range with a trace of unwillingness in his eyes. Then, he instructed the white dog. White dog, the withering blood mountain range is too dangerous. Let's hurry up and leave. Seeing that Yuhauran was about to use a movement technique to leave the withering blood mountain range, the white dog shook its body and quickly turned into a handsome strange beast about 6 meters tall and 7 meters long with exuberant snow-white fur. The white dog bent its body and crawled in front of Yuhauran as it gestured. "You Zongshi, let me carry you and leave." "All right." He reached out and stroked the snow-white fur. A trace of soft and smooth comfort immediately extinguished the thought of rejecting. Immediately after, he directly jumped onto the white dog's back and suggested as he gestured that it could leave. "White dog, in the future, you can either call me Prince Consort or Yuhauran. Don't call me Yuzongshi." "Yes, Prince Consort." Directly calling him by his name was not respectful and intimate enough, so the white dog chose to call him Prince Consort. Unlike the violent black bear, the white dog's back was not only soft and comfortable, but it also didn't feel any ripples when it ran. It was as if it was completely still. This made Yuhauran gradually grow fond of this feeling. "Yuhauran, when your cultivation reaches the peak of martial honorable realm, and my soul recovers to the peak of Emperor Wu realm, we must return to the Sea of Flowers and take back the main body of the blood spirit body sculpting flower and the blood soul stone," Thaling said through gritted teeth as he looked unwillingly at the sea of blood in the depths of the mountain range. "All right." Yuhauran nodded in agreement. Chapter 1162. Xianyang City, Joyous Moon Palace. Ever since Qin Lingfei had been conferred the title of royal princess, her status had changed drastically. She had moved from her original palace to the Joyous Moon Palace, where the environment was more beautiful and the spiritual energy was more abundant. She knew that Yuhauran, who had returned to Xianyang City, would definitely come to see Qin Lingfei as soon as he could. Therefore, Ting Yunjie, who had been waiting for Yuhauran's return, went to the Joyous Moon Palace every now and then. On the surface, he was there to guide Qin Lingfei in her cultivation, but in reality, he hoped to see Yuhauran as soon as possible and ask him to help concoct pills to treat the ancestors' injuries. "It's already the 10th day." Ting Yunjie, who was standing in the back garden of the Joyous Moon Palace, muttered to himself with disappointment in his eyes. "Brother Yunjie, you don't have to worry too much. The Emperor's son-in-law is a man of his words." Qin Lingfei, who had just consolidated her cultivation as an early 4th-grade martial saint, comforted Ting Yunjie after seeing the disappointment in his eyes. "Since he said that he would be back in 10 days or 15 days, he will definitely come back within this period of time. Your Highness, Yunjie believes in the Emperor's son-in-law." Retracting his gaze from the north, Ting Yunjie explained with a bitter smile. "But I'm mainly worried about the ancestors' injuries. Can he—" However, before Ting Yunjie could finish his explanation, he was interrupted by Qin Lingfei's communication jade talisman. "Brother Yunjie, Yuhauran is back." After reading the message in the communication jade talisman, Qin Lingfei suddenly looked up at Ting Yunjie and said with uncontrollable excitement. "Really?" Ting Yunjie said with the same excitement. Nodding, Qin Lingfei directly soared into the sky and quickly flew to the north of Xianyang City. Although Ting Yunjie also wanted to soar into the sky to greet Yuhauran, he finally stopped himself from doing so. This was because he knew very well that Yuhauran and Qin Lingfei, who had not seen each other for a long time, might do some scenes that were not suitable for children when they were emotional. If he did not want to provoke Yuhauran's disgust, it would be best for him to obediently wait in the Joyous Moon Palace Hall. After nearly half a year, I, Yuhauran, am finally back. Yuhauran could not help sighing as he looked at the familiar city 50 kilometers away and the imperial palace with a faint purple divine dragon in the center. When the person he had been looking forward to for a long time appeared in his line of sight, He was so excited that he flew off the white dog's back and quickly rushed to the side of the person he had been thinking about day and night. Then, he directly pulled her into his arms. After hugging for nearly 5 minutes, when his excited emotions calmed down a little, Yu Haoran held Qin Lingfei's jade hand and returned to the white dog's back. White dog, she is Qin Lingfei. She is Yu Haoran's woman. Patting the white dog's soft back, Yu Haoran introduced domineeringly. Greetings to the mistress. Directly calling Qin Lingfei by her name would make the relationship between him and Yu Haoran seem too distant, so the white dog decided to call the mistress directly. Seeing that Yu Haoran was not angry or opposed, the white dog immediately felt excited. This meant that he was gradually starting to accept him. What a beautiful big dog! Reaching out to stroke the white dog's smooth white fur, Qin Lingfei's eyes revealed an envious expression. Seeing the envy in Qin Lingfei's eyes, Yu Haoran smiled knowingly. However, he did not immediately give a promise, because he had already prepared a strange beast suitable to become Qin Lingfei's beast pet. White dog, go to the palace. After instructing the white dog, Yu Haoran began to check the results of Qin Lingfei's recent cultivation. Lingfei, did you have any fortuitous encounters during this period? It had only been a month since they parted at the Twin Bull Mountain. Qin Lingfei had just broken through to the first-grade Martial Saint realm, and now she had just consolidated her fourth-grade Martial Saint realm. The speed of her cultivation advancement had far exceeded her own talent. Moreover, the profound Yin soul fire in her body had not completely merged, and the profound Yin qi had not been completely eliminated. It was impossible to greatly increase her cultivation in a short period of time. Then, to be able to cause her cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds in such a short period of time, it could only be due to a fortuitous encounter. Haoran, the reason why I was able to break through 4 small realms in such a short period of time was all due to Big Brother Yunjie's selfless guidance. Hearing Yu Haoran ask about the reason for her rapid advancement in cultivation, Qin Lingfei suddenly thought of Ting Yunjie, who had guided her in her cultivation and was currently anxiously waiting at the Joyous Moon Palace. After quickly explaining the reason for her rapid advancement in cultivation, she immediately reminded him. Haoran, quickly follow me to the Joyous Moon Palace. Big Brother Yunjie is still waiting for you to refine pills to save his life. Lingfei, senior brother Yunjie is injured? Yu Haoran asked nervously as he gestured for the white dog to speed up towards the palace. Ting Yunjie's character was not bad, and he was also very loyal. He was one of the few friends that he had acknowledged. Therefore, when he heard that he urgently needed pills to save his life, he appeared so nervous. It's not Big Brother Yunjie. It's the Ting family's old ancestor. After using his divine sense to inform the white dog of the Joyous Moon Palace's location, Qin Lingfei replied, "It seems that they have provoked the long-armed ape in the end." Hearing that Ting Yunjie's old ancestor was heavily injured, Yu Haoran immediately relaxed. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart as he guessed. At that time, he had specially warned Emperor Qin about how terrifying the long-armed ape in the Death Valley was. It seemed that he didn't take his warning to heart at all. In the end, he deserved to be heavily injured. The white dog, who had increased its speed, only took a minute to reach the Joyous Moon Palace. Junior brother Yu. Seeing Yu Haoran jump down from the white dog's back, Ting Yunjie immediately went to greet him. Senior brother Ting. Letting go of Qin Lingfei's jade-like hand, Yu Haoran replied with a smile. Junior brother Yu, I'm really sorry. This time, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you to refine pills again. Without excessive pleasantries, Ting Yunjie went straight to the point. Senior brother Ting, regarding the matter of your heavenly martial sex old ancestor, Ling Fei has already told me. Nodding his head in agreement, Yu Haoran asked with a solemn expression. May I know what kind of pills senior brother Ting needs me to refine? The rank 3 first rank 9 Yang resurrection pill. Taking out the 3 sets of medicinal herbs prepared by the sect leader, Ting Yunjie replied. Injuries to the spirit? Yu Haoran raised his eyebrows slightly and asked. That's right. Nodding his head, Ting Yunjie explained further. Junior brother Yu, the ape in Death Valley is far too powerful. Just a simple punch from it has heavily injured my ancestor's soul, Yu Jian said with a frown. Chapter 1163. In Xianyang City's Yue Palace. Yu Haoran, what's the cultivation base of that young fella's great ancestor? Ever since they left the Withering Blood Mountain, Thaling had been staying in the Victor to sort out the smithing materials he obtained from the Gu Liang clan. He was thinking about refining a magic tool for Yu Haoran that could unleash the characteristics of the ancestral shaman's body. Therefore, he was not in the mood to pay attention to Yu Haoran, nor was he interested in understanding and getting to know Ting Yunjie. However, when he heard Ting Yunjie mention the long-armed ape monkey in Death Valley, he was instantly interested. This was because he had a deep relationship with the monkey's ancestor, which was also one of the 4 great ancient spiritual monkeys, the long-armed divine ape. As such, he wanted to take care of it as much as he could. When Ting Qingshan heard that the Ting family's great ancestor had to self-detonate a low-grade Venerable 1 magic tool and overdraft 1/3 of his origin power and soul power to escape from the long-armed ape monkey's fist technique, he could not help but ask the great ancestor. It seems to be the Quasi-Emperor Wu's boundary that has just been integrated into his soul. Yu Haoran guessed after recalling Ting Yunjie's request to refine the 7 Lives mysterious gate pill. Yu Haoran, you better confirm it with that young fella. Thaling reminded him when he could tell that Yu Haoran was not 100% sure about the Ting family's great ancestor's true cultivation base. I suspect that the Ting family's great ancestor's injuries aren't as easy as he said. Senior brother Ting, what's your great ancestor's true cultivation base? Thaling's reminder reminded Yu Haoran of the long-armed ape monkey's fearsome strength when it captured the python alive. He was also worried that a 9-yang soul-returning pill would not be able to heal the great ancestor's injuries, so he listened to Thaling's instructions and asked solemnly. Junior brother Yu, my great ancestor just advanced to the Quasi-Emperor Wu's boundary half a year ago. Since he was asking Yu Haoran to refine a top-notch healing pill, Ting Yunjie felt embarrassed to continue hiding the ancestor's true cultivation, so he answered truthfully. When Thaling heard that the Ting family's great ancestor's cultivation base was only at the Quasi-Emperor Wu boundary, he could not help but sneer and mock. You've only just entered the Quasi-Emperor Wu boundary, yet you managed to escape with your life after your soul was severely injured. You're underestimating the might of the long-armed ape's fist technique. Thaling, what do you mean? Yu Haoran immediately asked, not understanding the reason for Thaling's sneer. Yu Haoran, although I didn't witness the battle between the Ting family's great ancestor and the long-armed ape monkey, according to my understanding of that ape, it must have performed the heaven-trapping earth fist technique, which was inherited from its ancestor's bloodline when it faced an opponent who was close to Emperor Wu's boundary. Thaling explained in detail. With the long-armed ape's strength, the might of the heaven-trapping earth fist technique would reach the level of a 3rd tribulation Quasi-Emperor Wu. With the strength of a new Quasi-Emperor Wu, when faced with a fist technique of a 3rd tribulation Quasi-Emperor Wu's boundary, the final result is obvious. If my guess is correct, the Meng family's great ancestor's soul is probably on the verge of collapse. After hearing Thaling's detailed explanation, Yu Haoran could not help but fall into deep thought. Although the Rank 3, Rank 1 9-yang soul recovery pill was a top-notch healing pill for the soul, when faced with a soul that was about to collapse, not only would it not be a healing pill, but it would also be a fatal poison. After thinking over and over again, Yu Haoran finally decided to let Thaling personally examine the Meng family's great ancestor's soul injury. After confirming his true condition, he would prescribe the right medicine. Senior Brother Ting, with my current alchemy cultivation, the success rate of refining a rank 3, rank 1, rank 9 Yang Soul recovery pill is as high as 90%. Seeing the joy on Ting Yunjie's face, Yu Haoran had no choice but to harden his heart and refuse. But I can't help you refine it. The smile that had just appeared on his face instantly froze. Ting Yunjie was somewhat disappointed and angry as he questioned. Why? Senior Brother Ting, I can't let you become the murderer of your great ancestor, and I can't let you become the eternal sinner of the heavenly martial sect. Yu Haoran said sincerely without any dissatisfaction in his heart because of Ting Yunjie's angry questioning. Facing Yu Haoran's sincere response, Ting Yunjie, whose anger instantly disappeared, asked with a puzzled expression, Junior Brother Yu, I don't understand. Senior Brother Ting, I once entered the inner valley of Death Valley. Not only do I know the long-armed ape that severely injured your great ancestor, but I also have a certain friendship with it. Therefore, I know its true strength very well. Subsequently, Yu Haoran told Ting Yunjie in detail about the fist technique that Thaling might perform on the long-armed ape, the final power of the fist technique, and the true state of the Ting family's great ancestor after he was severely injured. After hearing Yu Haoran's detailed introduction of the long-armed ape's strength and his guess about his great ancestor's injuries, Ting Yunjie blamed himself even more and asked in a panic. Junior Brother Yu, what should I do then? Senior Brother Ting, if you're sure that you believe me, it's best that you bring your great ancestor to Xianyang City. After I examine him carefully, I'll decide on the final treatment plan, Yu Haoran suggested. Junior Brother Yu, the great ancestor's identity is too important. It can be said that pulling one hair will affect the whole situation. Based on my status and strength, I don't have the right to decide if I can bring the great ancestor to Xianyang City, Ting Yunjie said with a bitter smile in the face of Yu Haoran's suggestion. Senior Brother Ting, go back and tell your heavenly martial sect master and elders that I, Yu Haoran, am in a good mood recently and plan to refine a cauldron of 7 lives mysterious gate pills in advance. Yu Haoran understood Ting Yunjie's difficulties, so he had already thought of a solution for him. He said with a serious expression, if you want to get a 7 lives mysterious gate pill in advance, then it's best to get to Xianyang City within 5 days. Otherwise, when my mood is normal, the success rate of refining the 7 lives mysterious gate pill will drop to less than 10%. Junior Brother Yu, thank you. The success rate of refining pills would increase with the continuous improvement of the alchemist's alchemy cultivation. There was no possibility of it dropping unless it was controlled by the alchemist. Therefore, Ting Yunjie knew that Yu Haoran was threatening the sect master to bring the great ancestor to Xianyang City for him. How could he not be excited? Senior Brother Ting, it's not too late. You'd better return to the heavenly martial sect immediately and try to bring your great ancestor to Xianyang City in the shortest time possible, Yu Haoran suggested as he waved his hand to indicate that Ting Yunjie did not need to be so polite. Princess Ling Fei, please tell His Majesty that I, Ting Yunjie, have an urgent matter to attend to and will return to the heavenly martial sect first. Ting Yunjie nodded and turned to ask Qin Ling Fei. Brother Yunjie, don't worry and leave. Ling Fei will explain to father for you. Qin Ling Fei nodded and said understandingly. Junior Brother Yu, thank you. Chapter 1164. Xianyang City, Joyous Moon Palace. Seeing Ting Yunjie disappear from his sight, Yu Haoran withdrew his gaze, and then looked at Qin Ling Fei with eyes full of tenderness. Facing the tenderness in Yu Haoran's eyes, Qin Ling Fei shyly bowed her head and carefully called out, Haoran, boy, pay attention to your emotions and thoughts. The mysterious yin qi in Ling Fei's body has not really dissipated. Originally, he wanted to return to Victor to continue sorting out the refining materials, but he unexpectedly felt the violent fluctuations in Yu Haoran's emotions, so he hurriedly took a careful look. Seeing the tenderness in Yu Haoran's eyes, and the shyness in Qin Lingfei's heart, Thaling could not help but frown and remind him. Facing Thaling's misunderstanding, Yu Haoran could not help but roll his eyes and refute. Thaling, I, Yu Haoran, am not a person who thinks with the lower half of his body. What should be done, and what should not be done, I know in my heart. Then, he walked in front of Qin Lingfei, stretched out his hand to hold her jade-like hand, and pulled her straight to the cultivation room of Joyous Moon Palace. Haoran, what kind of flower is this? Sitting cross-legged in the cultivation room, Qin Lingfei looked at Yu Haoran take out a beautiful flower the size of a disc from his storage ring, and asked in surprise. Silly girl, this flower is a spiritual flower used to upgrade the physical body, so that you can integrate the mysterious Yin soul fire in your body as soon as possible. It is not used to express my love. Qin Lingfei's eyes revealed the surprise of a young girl, and Yu Haoran immediately guessed her thoughts. At the same time, he was speechless, and could not help but stretch out his hand to flick her forehead. Haoran, I know. Stretching out her hand to rub her forehead, Qin Lingfei rolled her eyes at Yu Haoran with slight dissatisfaction. Her gaze once again fell on the beautiful flower, and a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. Lingfei, this flower is called the Blood Spirit Body Sculpting Flower. Its petals and stamen contain a vigorous life force. It is one of the few top elixirs in Tianxian continent that can greatly improve the physical body. Yu Haoran explained as he placed the Blood Spirit Body Sculpting Flower in front of Qin Lingfei. Back then, in the depths of the Sea of Flowers, he was faced with the reality of having to immediately leave the Sea of Flowers, and was not willing to return empty-handed. So, he asked Thaling to use his powerful divine sense, to help him collect 99 flowers that were not occupied by the insect eggs collected. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Qin Lingfei pinched the broken stem of the flower and began to use her body-refining technique to absorb the exuberant life force contained in the flower. Early stage 3rd grade martial emperor. Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction as he felt the aura fluctuation of Qin Lingfei's physical body breakthrough. This showed that Qin Lingfei had never been too greedy for the advancement of her cultivation, and had always valued the consolidation of her body's foundation. Next, through the speed at which Qin Lingfei absorbed the life force in the flower, as well as the effect of assisting in the advancement of the physical body, he left behind 2 blood spirit body sculpting flower branches, as well as 2 elixirs to consolidate the breakthrough of the physical body. After that, he got up and left the cultivation room. Then, he went straight to the study of the town hall. Greetings, Prince Consort. Seeing Yu Haoran appear in front of the town hall, Manager Jiang, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately greeted him with a smile. Manager Jiang, you don't have to be so courteous. Looking at Manager Jiang, who was kneeling on one knee, Yu Haoran quickly reached out to help him up, and took out a storage bag that contained some elixirs and level 4 spirit stones, and directly stuffed it into his hand. Prince Consort, I can't accept it. Looking at the storage bag in his hand, Manager Jiang did not even look at it and directly refused. Manager Jiang, it's not like you don't know Yu Haoran's temper. You must not make me angry. With a straight face, Yu Haoran threatened unhappily. Faced with Yu Haoran's well-intentioned threat, Manager Jiang suddenly did not know what to say. Okay, you can accept it with peace of mind. Reaching out and patting Manager Jiang's shoulder, Yu Haoran stepped into the Hall of Rites with a smile, and then went straight to the study in the back hall. Seeing Yu Haoran enter the Hall of Rites, Manager Jiang's face showed a happy smile, and then his mind went into the storage bag, wanting to see what kind of gift the Prince Consort gave him. After seeing more than a dozen elixirs used to improve cultivation and strength, as well as 100 level 4 spirit stones, Manager Jiang was suddenly stunned. You're back! Looking at Yu Haoran, who broke into the study without Manager Jiang's notice, Emperor Qin was not angry at all and said with a smile, I'm back! Nodding, Yu Haoran sat on the chair in front of the desk, looked up at Emperor Qin, and said with a serious expression, "Your Majesty, I want to marry Ling Fei as my wife in the shortest time possible." His left hand that was holding the memorial trembled. Emperor Qin was both gratified and puzzled. "Prince Consort, why are you in such a hurry?" "Explanation," Yu Haoran replied. "What explanation? Who are you going to give an explanation to?" Emperor Qin asked even more confusedly. "An explanation to myself, an explanation to Ling Fei, an explanation to His Majesty, and an explanation to some people who have bad intentions," Yu Haoran explained with a calm expression. "Prince Consort, during the time you were out training, did you encounter some people who threatened you? An explanation to some people who have bad intentions." The last sentence of Yu Haoran's explanation made Emperor Qin vaguely guess some things, and his eyes kept flashing with cold light as he asked. Nodding, Yu Haoran roughly explained how the Bailey clan and the Zhou clan wanted to rope him in through marriage. Humph! After hearing the wishful thinking of the Bailey clan and the Zhou clan, Emperor Qin could not help but snort coldly. Then, he got up and left the dragon throne, walked to the window, and looked in the direction of the central region in the north, and said with a frosty voice, "Bailey clan, Zhou clan, my northern expedition army will invade the central region sooner or later. You inherited clans who fear for the world to be in chaos will be annihilated in front of my army sooner or later." After looking in the direction of the central region in the north for nearly half an hour, Emperor Qin, who had readjusted his emotions, returned to the dragon throne, and said with gratification and gratitude in his eyes, "Prince Consort, I thank you on behalf of Ling Fei, on behalf of the Qin clan, and on behalf of the great Emperor Qin nation. Your Majesty, you are too kind." Yu Haoran hurriedly got up in response to Emperor Qin's thanks. "Prince Consort, the Empress Dowager sent news a while ago, saying that she has successfully retrieved the key to open the secret realm, and will return to Xianyang City in at most half a month." Indicating for Yu Haoran to sit, the Qin Emperor rapped his knuckles on the table as he spoke. "In this case, your wedding with Ling Fei must be held within half a month. Because this will not delay your training in the secret realm, nor will it affect the southern region hidden dragon ranking battle that will begin a month later." Chapter 1165. In the study of the Hall of Rites. As one of the three great empires in the Tianxian continent, the great Emperor Qin Kingdom, whose prestige was not inferior to the seven top sects, was marrying the most respected princess. If they followed the normal procedure, it would take at least a year or so. In 15 days, they might not even be able to complete the most basic etiquette. If the wedding was not perfect, it would not only affect the national prestige that the great Emperor Qin Kingdom had accumulated with great difficulty, but for Qin Ling Fei and Yu Haoran, it would also become an irreparable regret in their lives. "Your Majesty, I think the simpler the wedding procedure, the better." Seeing the gradually frowning Emperor Qin, Yu Haoran knew what his difficulties were and suggested with a smile. "Haoran, if the wedding is too simple, it will not only hurt Ling Fei, but also affect the national prestige of the Emperor Qin Kingdom." Emperor Qin shook his head and refused. "Your Majesty, don't worry, it's just a simplification of the procedure. The most important steps will still be carried out normally." Speaking of this, Yu Haoran got up, looked at Emperor Qin, and made his promise. "Your Majesty, I promise to give Ling Fei an unforgettable wedding and strengthen the national prestige of the Qin Kingdom. I will never let you down. Prince Consort, I believe in you." Looking at the firmness in Yu Haoran's eyes, Emperor Qin finally believed the promise he gave, and also gave a time to hold the wedding. That was 12 days later. And that day was also Yu Haoran's birthday. After confirming the time of the wedding, Yu Haoran thought of a very important thing. That was how to ensure that his sister Yusiki could arrive in Xianyang City smoothly before the wedding. After all, as his only blood relative in the world, Yuhauran felt very guilty that she did not attend his engagement ceremony. If she could not attend the most important wedding, it would not only be a matter of guilt, but also his parents who were immersed underground would feel uneasy. Prince Consort, you don't have to worry about this. After hearing Yuhauran's problem, Emperor Qin said with a smile. Ting Yunjie's aunt is the Snow Palace's third elder. I'll ask Yunjie to use the communication jade talisman to let his aunt know that your sister can arrive in Xianyang City before the wedding. That's great. Yuhauran did not expect Ting Yunjie to have such a relationship with the Snow Palace. While he was happy, he also decided to treat the great ancestor of the Ting family with all his might. Of course, after that, the two of them began to discuss some things that they needed to pay attention to during the wedding. In the island lake, Blue Flood Dragon, come out? He mobilized his elemental energy and soul power to form a gigantic palm that could blot out the sun. Then, he viciously slapped the surface of the lake. Boom! As the giant palm slammed onto the surface of the lake, the calm surface of the lake immediately stirred up countless waves. Who dares to disturb my quiet cultivation? As the waves on the lake surged, a clear and angry voice came from the bottom of the lake. Accompanied by the clear voice, a beautiful blue flood dragon that was over 60 meters long flew out from the bottom of the lake. It had two slightly protruding lumps on its forehead. Blue Flood Dragon, I didn't expect you to become a rank 5 first stage Emperor Realm Flood Dragon after not seeing you for half a year. Yuhauran said in surprise as he used his Yu to quickly calm the surging waves. When he first met the Blue Flood Dragon, it was about to advance to rank 6 first stage Emperor Realm. Now, less than 7 months had passed since they parted, and it had actually broken through to the next realm. The speed of breaking through was definitely heaven-defying for an exotic beast with a long lifespan. This also meant that the Blue Flood Dragon must have had a shocking fortuitous encounter during this period of time. Yuhauran, it's you. After hearing the familiar surprised voice, the Blue Flood Dragon descended a little and looked up at the young man who attacked the lake. It immediately shouted in surprise. However, it immediately asked with furrowed brows. Yuhauran, there's still 1 year, 6 months, and 7 days until the time we agreed on. Why did you come back early? Blue Flood Dragon, the reason I came back early is because I found a suitable master for you to sign a beast pet contract with. Seeing that the Blue Flood Dragon wasn't willing to answer the reason for its rapid breakthrough, Yuhauran didn't ask any more questions and directly stated his purpose for coming back early. Yuhauran, since you've saved me before, I'll pretend that you didn't say anything just now. He actually wants me to become a human's beast pet? The Blue Flood Dragon's expression instantly darkened when it heard Yuhauran's purpose for coming here. Lan Jiao, if it weren't for the agreement we had back then, do you think I would use a negotiating tone? Yuhauran, whose face had also turned gloomy, reprimanded in a rather rude tone. A trace of disdain flashed in the Blue Flood Dragon's eyes as she asked with a cold smile, What? Are you planning to attack me? Blue Flood Dragon, it seems that you must have had a heaven-defying fortuitous encounter during this period of time. Not only did it allow your grade and strength to change drastically, but it also increased your courage by a lot. After seeing a trace of disdain in the Blue Flood Dragon's eyes, Yuhauran was stunned for a moment before he exposed the reason why she dared to treat him so forcefully with a cold smile. That's right. Why don't you give it a try? Since she had already been exposed, the Blue Flood Dragon had no intention of continuing to hide it. She sneered and provoked as she planned to use the method after her fortuitous encounter. Humph! In the face of the Blue Flood Dragon's provocation, Yuhauran snorted coldly and instantly activated his full strength. Wind and clouds surge. As the powerful aura that was infinitely close to that of a martial venerable slowly rose, the entire lake island was swept up in a gale. The clouds above the island were directly suppressed by the aura. This is the aura of someone who's about to reach the martial venerable realm. The pressure of the terrifying aura trapped the blue flood dragon in midair, unable to move at all. Seeing Yuhauran's rising aura become more and more terrifying, the blue flood dragon couldn't help but cry out in fear. Blue flood dragon, do it! Taking a step forward, Yuhauran sneered and gestured. Yuhauran, the blue flood dragon, don't think that I'm a match for you, so just kill me directly. Knowing that she was definitely no match for Yuhauran, but she didn't want to be restricted by the pet beast contract, the blue flood dragon finally chose to die. Blue flood dragon, how's the speed of my cultivation and strength improvement of Yuhauran? Facing the blue flood dragon who had completely given up resisting and closed her eyes to wait for death, Yuhauran withdrew his terrifying aura and didn't kill her. Instead, he asked in a gentle tone. No one has ever done it before, and no one will ever do it again. The blue flood dragon gave an evaluation that was enough to make everyone blush. However, Yuhauran, whose skin was as thick as a city wall, didn't feel embarrassed at all. Chapter 1166. Weidao Lake. Yuhauran, are you sure? The Blue Jiao, who had originally planned to use death in exchange for freedom, was suddenly interested after hearing Yuhauran's introduction. She believed that a powerhouse like Yuhauran would not easily deceive her. Blue Jiao, this is a drop of blood from your future master. You can experience it yourself. Yuhauran indicated as he took out a drop of blood collected from Qin Lingfei and flicked it to the Blue Jiao. The Blue Jiao was not worried that Yuhauran would harm her. She opened her mouth and swallowed the drop of blood into her body. In just 3 seconds, a thick blue gas was emitted from the Blue Jiao's body and quickly enveloped her. Roar! 1 minute later, accompanied by the Blue Jiao's excited cry, the blue gas suddenly exploded. The Blue Jiao, whose body had expanded by nearly 2 meters, directly rushed in front of Yuhauran and said excitedly, Yuhauran, I agree. When will I sign a beast pet contract with my master? The strong impact of suddenly receiving a new lease of life in the depths of despair would completely crush the pride in the Blue Jiao's heart and her yearning for herself, allowing her to make a wise choice in the end. Therefore, Yuhauran was not surprised that the Blue Jiao was forced to become Qin Lingfei's beast pet. However, after the Blue Jiao agreed, Yuhauran felt that her current grade and strength were too low to bring about a strong enough shock to everyone. He took out 3 blood spirit body shaping flowers and 2 types of elixirs that could increase grade and strength from his storage ring and directly introduced them to the Blue Jiao. The blood spirit body shaping flower can greatly increase the grade of your physical body. The blood lotus elixir can further purify the divine dragon bloodline in your body. The spirit replenishing elixir can further increase the demonic power in your body. After introducing the effects of the blood spirit body shaping flower and the 2 types of elixirs, Yuhauran asked solemnly, Lan Jiao, with the assistance of these top-notch treasures, how long will it take for you to advance to the 4th Order Saint Realm? After consuming a blood spirit body sculpting flower, a blood lotus pill, and a spirit replenishing pill, he carefully sensed the effects of these 3 treasures on his own grade. In just a second, Blue Jiao could clearly feel the grade of her physical body, the blood essence that belonged to the divine dragon in her bloodline, and the demonic power in her dantian beginning to undergo astonishing changes. She immediately said to Yuhauran excitedly, Give me 10 days, and I will definitely be able to be reborn and become a real flood dragon. He only needed 10 days. Yuhauran nodded in satisfaction after hearing Blue Jiao give him the time needed to break through his grade and physique. Blue Jiao, you can continue to stay in the remote island lake and break through. I will personally come to pick you up in 13 days. I got it. Nodding, Blue Jiao dived into the bottom of the lake and began to refine the enormous energy contained in the 3 treasures with all her might. Seeing Blue Jiao dive back into the remote island lake, Yuhauran continued to rise into the air. When he was about to rush to the next location, he subconsciously glanced in the direction of remote mountain city. In the end, he could not help but sigh. The falling flower is willing to follow the flowing water, but the flowing water has no intention of loving the falling flower. After leaving behind a sigh, Yuhauran sped up and left the remote island lake. Less than 5 minutes after Yuhauran left Tiny Island Lake, a beautiful girl in a white dress appeared on the shore of Tiny Island Lake like a fairy in the wind. Looking up at the calm lake, the girl in white stood quietly by the lake with a look of longing in her eyes. Death Valley. Yuhauran, what are you doing in the Death Valley at this time? She knew that in order to prepare an unforgettable wedding for Qin Lingfei, Yuhauran had been collecting the world's top-notch treasures. As a teacher and a father, Thaling naturally had to contribute as well. During this period of time, he had been thinking about how to combine Qin Lingfei's physique and create a special magic weapon for her that could cause a sensation in the entire Tianxian continent. Therefore, he did not pay attention to Yuhauran's actions. However, the aura of the Death Valley was too familiar and deep for Thaling, who had recovered to Emperor Wu's level in his soul form. Therefore, just as Yuhauran arrived at the Death Valley, he woke up from his deep thought. Snatch a treasure and send an invitation. Taking a deep breath, Yuhauran gave a simple reply to Thaling's question and stepped into the Death Valley. When he passed by a patch of lush green grass and saw that there were still traces of blood left on the grass not far away, he stopped in his tracks with a complicated expression. Retracting his gaze from the blood-stained grass, he turned to look in the direction of Lanling City. Yuhauran's eyes were filled with reluctance and reminiscence. However, the reluctance and reminiscence were eventually replaced by calmness. Looking back at Lanling in the dusk, tears flow in the cool breeze. Beautiful images flashed past my eyes, it's hard to turn back if we're not fated. After leaving behind this emotional poem, Yuhauran quickened his pace and hurried to the stream. Just as Yuhauran leaped over the stream and entered the inner valley of the Death Valley, a woman with a devilish figure in a light blue corset dress arrived at the patch of grass where he had just stopped. Looking at the remaining traces of blood on the grass, the woman's eyes were filled with deep sorrow and regret. In the inner valley of the Death Valley. Boom! After using the soaring fist of the basic fist technique to smash a crimson gale wolf at the peak of the 7th level of the Saint stage, Yuhauran raised his head and looked into the depths of the inner valley. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Thaling, do you think Senior Long-Armed Ape is in trouble? After entering the inner valley of the Death Valley for close to 1.5 hours, the number of Emperor Stage and Saint Stage mutated beasts that had died in his hands had reached 12. Under normal circumstances, the roar caused by the killing and the energy waves caused by the fighting should have alerted the second tribulation Quasi-Emperor Long-Armed Ape Monkey. Moreover, based on how highly the Long-Armed Ape thought of him when they first met, it should have appeared in front of him by now. As he was wary of the Long-Armed Ape's powerful strength, Thaling did not dare to use his divine consciousness to check the inner valley of the Death Valley. At this moment, after hearing Yuhauran's reminder, the pagoda spirit also felt that something was not quite right. It immediately mobilized the powerful divine consciousness of the martial Emperor realm and took the risk to check the movements in the depths of the valley. Not good. When his spiritual sense saw that on a hill in the depths of the inner valley, there was a ball of black gas gathered at the long-armed ape monkey's imprint hall. His expression changed drastically as he reminded Yuhauran. Yuhauran, use all your strength and rush to the inner valley immediately. The long-armed ape is being poisoned. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yuhauran did not dare to delay and immediately activated the ancestral witch body and took out the purple rod. Chapter 1167. Death Valley, Inner Valley. Thaling didn't use his divine telekinesis to observe. That was because he was wary of the long-armed ape monkey's powerful strength. He was worried that he would expose his existence and cause unnecessary trouble. Yuhauran didn't use his divine telekinesis to check. It was out of respect for the long-armed ape monkey. After all, as an overlord whose strength had reached the level of a second tribulation quasi-Emperor Wu, the entire Death Valley could be said to be the territory of the long-armed ape monkey. It would be rude to use his divine telekinesis to check. When his divine telekinesis noticed the state of the long-armed ape monkey, Yuhauran was immediately attracted by the black gas gathered at its glabella. That was because the black gas vaguely gave him a familiar feeling, as if he had seen it not long ago. When he quickly reached the hill and arrived in front of the long-armed ape monkey, Thaling in his sea of consciousness immediately stopped him. Yuhauran, back off quickly. Actually, even without Thaling's timely reminder, Yuhauran wouldn't continue to get close to the long-armed ape monkey. That was because he suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. It reminded him of the black gas that was sealed in a mysterious ice pill bottle in the 5th level of the Enforcer Peak's treasure vault more than a year ago. Who is it? The long-armed ape monkey, who was trying its best to resist the black gas invasion of its sea of consciousness, unexpectedly felt a strong living being approaching. It immediately asked with a murderous aura, "Senior long-armed ape, it's Junior Yuhauran." After pulling a distance of nearly 30 meters between them, Yuhauran immediately responded to the long-armed ape's murderous roar. "So it's you." After seeing that the person who came was actually the young man it had always thought highly of, the long-armed ape monkey grinned widely. However, the sudden invasion of the black gas made the smile on its face not even last for a second. It was replaced by a fierce expression. "Senior long-armed ape, how did you get invaded by this black gas?" Seeing the black gas on the long-armed ape's forehead suddenly condense, Yuhauran's face changed. In his previous life, he had seen with his own eyes how the black gas had turned a peak 3rd-grade martial saint expert into a monster that only knew how to kill in a short period of time. Thus, he knew the reason why the black gas had condensed so quickly. "Damned nine-tailed snake." Long-armed ape gritted his teeth and explained after barely resisting the invasion of the black gas. "Old ape, I didn't think that it would bite the hand that fed it. It used this black gas to sneak attack me from behind while I was dealing with the human quasi-martial venerable. It's also my fault for trusting it too much, resulting in its successful sneak attack." Yuhauran could not help but frown when he heard that the reason why the long-armed ape was threatened by the black gas was because of a sneak attack by its good friend, the nine-tailed snake. The nine-tailed snake was able to survive in the inner valley of Death Valley until now because of the protection of the long-armed ape. It had no reason to attack the long-armed ape. Also, where did it get this black gas from? Unless, thinking of this, Yuhauran immediately asked, "Senior long-armed ape, when the nine-tailed snake sneak attacked you, did it become like this?" Using Yuan power to extract the moist air in the air, he condensed a few water droplets. Then, relying on the memories of his previous life, he used the water droplets to roughly depict an abnormally ferocious-looking monster. Glancing at the monster that Yuhauran had drawn using the water droplets, the long-armed ape shook his head and said, "No, everything about that stinky snake was normal. It was obvious that it had been planning this sneak attack for a long time. Yuhauran, don't ask about these messy things for now. Quickly think of a way to help the long-armed ape deal with the threat of the black gas." Seeing that Yuhauran kept asking about the reason behind the nine-tailed snake's sneak attack, he was worried that the black gas would eventually turn into the Thaling of the long-armed ape. He immediately reminded him, "Senior long-armed ape, how much longer can you last?" Yuhauran silently nodded his head and looked at the long-armed ape. "At most 30 minutes, the long-armed ape said with a bitter smile. "From the time I was attacked by the stinky snake until now, half a month has passed. In order to resist the invasion of this damned black gas into my sea of consciousness, not only is my soul power about to be exhausted, but the demonic power in my dantian is also about to dry up. Senior long-armed ape, if I can help your soul power and demonic power return to their peak, can you completely suppress the black gas? Being able to resist the invasion of the black gas for half a month, while Yuhauran was shocked by the strength of the long-armed ape, he couldn't help but ask with anticipation. If the long-armed ape could completely suppress the black gas, then he could use the mysterious ice pill bottle to enter the seal. No. Unfortunately, the long-armed ape immediately shook his head and explained with a serious expression. This black gas has a very strong fusion ability. After half a month, the black gas has not only merged into my body, but also my dantian and sea of consciousness. Therefore, although the long-armed ape didn't continue to explain, Yuhauran already understood what it was trying to say. Closing his eyes, he carefully recalled his experience with the black gas in his previous life and thought of a way to eliminate the black gas. Heavenly Tao precepts come out. Yuhauran abruptly opened his eyes and raised his head to shout at the void within Death Valley. In his previous life, the reason why the black gas was destroyed was because of the heavenly thunder from the rules of heaven. Therefore, he also hoped that the rules of heaven would help him this time. Unfortunately, the rules of heaven that had been secretly protecting him didn't appear as he wished this time. Yuhauran, as the rules of heaven become more and more perfect, before the Hidden Dragon ranking competition ends, it won't care about any request from any living being, even if it's by means of a blood oath. Seeing that Yuhauran wanted to use the rules of heaven to help the long-armed ape get rid of the threat of the black gas, Thaling, who knew the true state of the rules of heaven, reminded him. The only way to eliminate the black gas was the heavenly punishment lightning. Since the rules of heaven wasn't willing to help, then he could only think of a way to attract the heavenly punishment lightning. The way was through refining a high-grade elixir that could attract the pill tribulation. But now there were two problems that troubled him. The first problem was that with the herbs that he had on hand, he needed at least 1.5 hours to refine the elixir that could attract the pill tribulation. And the long-armed ape, which was about to reach its limit, couldn't hold on for such a long time. The second problem was that the grade and strength of the long-armed ape were too strong. It could cause the power of the pill tribulation to increase by tens or even hundreds of times. He was worried that the long-armed ape might not be able to survive the pill tribulation. After hearing Yuhauran's solution and problems, Thaling pondered for a while and asked. Chapter 1168. In the Inner Valley of Death Valley. Pagoda Spirit? Is it a blood-burning pill made from the blood essence of 36 different types of beasts? It's able to ignore the limitations of those below the Emperor realm and help beasts unleash the power of an entire realm. Yuhauran exclaimed. That's right. Thaling nodded and asked. Do you know the recipe for the burning blood pill? Yes. Yuhauran nodded. Do you have the ability to make it? Thaling asked in surprise. The process of making the burning blood pill is not troublesome. If you use the pill condensation technique of nothingness, you can successfully trigger the pill tribulation within 20 minutes. At this point, Yuhauran's tone changed, and he reminded with a frown. Thaling, with my current cultivation and strength, it is impossible to collect 36 different types of exotic beasts' blood essence within 10 minutes. Yuhauran, tell the long-armed ape how you can solve the problem of the black gas. It will help you solve the problem of the exotic beast's blood essence required to make the burning blood pill, Thaling reminded with a smile. Senior long-armed ape, I want to help you solve the problem by making the burning blood pill that can trigger the pill tribulation. Thinking that the long-armed ape was the real overlord of Death Valley and ruled hundreds or even thousands of different types of exotic beasts in the valley, Yuhauran immediately told the long-armed ape his idea and the problem he was facing. Here. When the long-armed ape heard that Yuhauran intended to refine the burning blood pill that could attract a pill tribulation and help him deal with the threat of the black gas, he was shocked by Yuhauran's shocking alchemy skills. He immediately tore open the void and took out 36 pill bottles. Blood essence of the Black Mountain of the Third Tribulation Quasi-Master level. Blood essence of the Red Gale Wolf of the Third Tribulation Quasi-Master level. Blood essence of the Eight-Legged Black Spider of the Third Tribulation Quasi-Master level. Quickly opening the 36 elixir bottles given by the long-armed ape, Yuhauran was shocked to find that the essence blood in each elixir bottle all came from Third Tribulation Quasi-Venerables. Furthermore, they all contained the bloodline of divine beasts from the Ancient and Middle Ages. Young friend, I wonder if the quality of the blood essence of these exotic beasts is enough to refine the blood-burning pill. The long-armed ape said domineeringly when he saw Yuhauran checking the blood essence in the 36 pill bottles. If the quality isn't enough, I still have a portion of the blood essence of an Exalt Realm exotic beast. When Yuhauran heard that the long-armed ape was going to take out the blood essence of an Exalted Realm exotic beast, he quickly shook his head and stopped it. Senior, that's enough. The higher the quality of a mutated beast's blood essence, the higher the grade of the burning blood pill refined and the stronger the effects. However, the process of condensing the pill required more energy, and the more powerful the pill tribulation would be, the lower the success rate would be. The 36 types of essence blood from Third Tribulation Quasi-Venerables had already reduced the success rate of refining the pill by nearly 30%. If it was the blood essence of an Exalt Realm exotic beast, he wouldn't even be able to proceed with the initial pill condensation process when faced with the aura of the Exalt Realm in the blood essence, let alone the pill tribulation. Taking a deep breath, Yuhauran bent his knees and sat down. First, he carefully recalled the formula of the burning blood pill, as well as the things to pay attention to during the refining process. When everything was ready, he immediately formed a seal with his 10 fingers and performed the void pill condensation technique in front of the long-armed ape. This is. Seeing Yuhauran's Danteon-fire space formed by forming a seal with his 10 fingers, the long-armed ape immediately recalled the origin of this refining technique from a trace of memory in his ancestral bloodline. This is the void pill condensation technique, created by Laozi Lier, the #1 human expert and the #1 alchemist in the Middle Ages. Yuhauran was too young. In the face of the burning blood pill that could trigger the pill tribulation, the long-armed ape instinctively suspected that he didn't have the ability to refine it successfully. Therefore, in the end, he gave him the essence blood from Third Tribulation Quasi-Venerables. If he had known that Yuhauran had mastered the elixir of nothingness, the elixir of nothingness created by the greatest human powerhouse of the Middle Ages, he would have given Yuhauran 36 types of elixir of nothingness at the beginning. Yuhauran, who didn't know that the long-armed ape doubted him and knew the origin of the void pill condensation technique, put all his attention into refining the burning blood pill. Unlike the pills refined with medicinal herbs, the essence blood itself was the purest energy. It only needed to be purified once after being fused. Then, he could directly use the pill condensation technique to condense the pill. This saved at least 1/3 of the time in the entire refining process. As more and more pills were refined with the void pill condensation technique, his understanding of the pill condensation technique deepened. The speed of his 10 fingers forming seals also became faster. In just 5 minutes, the essence blood from 36 different essence blood successfully condensed into a bright red pill the size of an apple. There was no need to enter the process of nourishing it. His hands didn't stop forming seals as he continued to perform the pill condensation technique. When the 9 pills that were separated began to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the inner valley of Death Valley, the hundreds of thousands of essence blood in the entire inner valley vaguely felt the urge to leave their bodies. Driven by instinct, No matter if it was the Exalt Realm Essence Blood or the Essence Blood that had just advanced to rank 10, all of them stayed far away from the area where Yuhauran was refining the pills. When the 9 pills in the Danteon Fire's space absorbed the maximum amount of energy, dark clouds that covered almost half of the inner valley gradually gathered in the sky above the inner valley of Death Valley. Boom! As the color of the dark clouds continued to thicken, lightning and thunder began to rumble within the dark clouds. As if it had sensed the arrival of danger, the black gas that had gathered in front of the long-armed ape's forehead began to condense and then desperately attacked the defense of the long-armed ape's sea of consciousness. Hold on! Sensing the final struggle of the black gas, the long-armed ape knew that as long as it could hold on until the pill tribulation arrived, the danger of the black gas would be eliminated. As for the heavenly punishment formed by the pill tribulation, relying on the bloodline of the long-armed ape, the heavenly punishment divine thunder would only increase its strength. It wouldn't pose any threat to it at all. Directly overdrawing 1/3 of the power of its spirit and nearly half of its Dantian's demonic power, the long-armed ape performed the secret technique in its bloodline to form an absolute defense in the space of its sea of consciousness. However, this absolute defense could only last for 10 minutes at most. Sensing the acceleration of the condensation of the black gas and the rising terrifying aura of the long-armed ape, Yuhauran knew that the long-armed ape and the black gas had begun their final struggle. The sooner the pill tribulation was triggered, the higher the chances of the long-armed ape winning in the end. Anyway, the ultimate goal of refining the burning blood pill was to trigger the pill tribulation and then eliminate the danger that the long-armed ape was facing. As for whether the pill could be refined in the end, the result wasn't important. Chapter 1169. Death Valley, Inner Valley. Boom! Countless lightning bolts gathered in the dark clouds tens of thousands of kilometers away. After detecting the 9 elixir pills that had left the Danteon Fire space, they condensed into a purple dragon and roared as they rushed out of the dark clouds. However, when the purple dragon that had left the dark clouds and detected the evil black gas in front of the long-armed ape's forehead, it seemed to have met a life-and-death enemy. It immediately stopped its body and roared anxiously at the dark clouds. As the purple dragon roared anxiously, the dark clouds within tens of thousands of kilometers began to churn. Roar! As the dark clouds churned violently, the roar of the divine dragon resounded throughout the southern region. After hearing the roar of the divine dragon, the black gas knew that it would not be able to break through the absolute defense formed by the long-armed ape in a short period of time. The black gas, which already had its own consciousness, immediately thought of escaping. Quickly leaving the long-armed ape's forehead, the black gas turned into a small black snake and planned to escape into the depths of the inner valley. However, at this moment, a huge dragon claw directly grabbed the small black snake. Hiss! A very ear-piercing hiss came from the small black snake's mouth. Feeling the sharp pain in his divine soul, Yuhauran immediately mobilized the Rui Bell in his divine soul to form a defense that could isolate the hiss from the damage to his divine soul. Ignoring the hiss that could harm his divine soul, the purple dragon claw that grabbed the small black snake suddenly tightened its grip. There was no sound and no energy fluctuation. The black gas that even a second tribulation quasi-emperor could not resist completely turned into white smoke and disappeared behind the purple dragon claw. After successfully eliminating the evil black gas, the purple dragon claw formed by the divine thunder did not disappear immediately. Instead, it directly grabbed the long-armed ape that was recovering its strength with the help of the elixir pills. Looking at the purple dragon claw that could easily destroy the black gas and quickly grab the long-armed ape, Yuhauran knew that the thing that he was most worried about had happened. That was because the black gas had been fused for a long time, causing the divine thunder of the pill tribulation to mistake the long-armed ape as an evil existence and intended to destroy it together. Looking at the purple dragon claw that was rushing toward it, the long-armed ape was not frightened at all. Instead, it revealed a happy smile on its face. Just as the purple dragon claw was about to grab its head, the long-armed ape suddenly stretched out its furry ape paw and directly grabbed the purple dragon claw with both of its paws. Then it roared, "Get down here!" As the long-armed ape pulled forcefully with its palms, the dark clouds in the sky above the valley were torn in half. A purple divine dragon that had yet to fully materialize was directly pulled out of the space of dark clouds, and then heavily smashed into the hard ground of the inner valley. Little friend, this is the most essential energy of the pill tribulation lightning. Not only can it improve the grade of the body, the origin energy in the dantian, the soul energy in the sea of consciousness, and the comprehension of the energy of the laws, it can also strengthen the foundation and improve one's potential. He stretched out his huge fist, and with 3 punches, the entire purple divine dragon was smashed into countless drops of purple lightning liquid. Then, the long-armed ape opened its bloody mouth and quickly absorbed the purple lightning liquid, while reminding him through divine telekinesis. After hearing long-armed ape's reminder, Yuhauran did not hesitate at all. He bent his knees and sat down cross-legged, using his self-created heavenly mandate mantra and the star do mantra taught by Thowling to improve his cultivation and the grade of his body. Boom! Accompanied by the continuous roars of breaking through to the next level, Yuhauran's cultivation quickly reached the early 9th level of the martial saint realm, and the grade of his body also reached the early 9th level of the martial saint realm. Although the self-created heavenly mandate mantra's absorption speed of the purple lightning liquid was more than 10 times that of the great mystery mantra, compared to the long-armed ape's absorption speed of the purple lightning liquid, it was not just a little bit slower. Therefore, after his cultivation and the grade of his body both reached the early 9th level of the martial saint realm, the purple lightning liquid formed after the purple divine dragon was completely absorbed by the long-armed ape. Putting away the regret in his heart, Yuhauran raised his head and looked at the 9 burning blood pills floating in the air with an expression of disbelief. The incomplete nourishment process made him think that the 9 pills would eventually be destroyed by the lightning strike caused by the pill tribulation. However, the final result was beyond his expectations. After withstanding the lightning tribulation, not only were the 9 burning blood pills not destroyed, but they were also refined into 9 pills. Reaching out his hand to call back the 9 burning blood pills floating in the air, Yuhauran carefully observed them for a while and found that although the 9 burning blood pills were refined successfully, the energy contained within was only 2/3 of the original grade of the burning blood pills. It seemed that the purple divine dragon that the long-armed ape had torn down earlier had probably consumed close to 90% of the energy of the pill tribulation. This led to the 9 pills successfully passing through the pill tribulation, but in the end, only the imperfect burning blood pills were formed. To Yuhauran, who had always pursued perfection, the imperfect 9 burning blood pills were a disgrace in his alchemy history. How could he wash away this disgrace? His choice was very simple and crude, and that was to directly crush the 9 burning blood pills. Looking at the 9 burning blood pills that had been crushed into powder, whether it was the long-armed ape that had recovered its strength with the help of the purple lightning liquid, or Thowling that had finally heaved a sigh of relief in his sea of consciousness, their eyes were filled with deep reluctance. Even if it was an imperfect burning blood pill, it could still help exotic beasts below the Emperor realm to directly erupt with the strength of an entire realm. Whether it was using it to rope in powerful exotic beasts, or entrusting it to a merchant guild for auction, there would be unimaginable gains. Despite their reluctance, Thowling and the long-armed ape did not complain about Yuhauran's impulsiveness, nor did they express any opinions. Using the purple lightning liquid that contained special energy, the long-armed ape used less than 20 minutes to recover 70% of its strength, enough for it to continue possessing the strength of the Death Valley's overlord. As such, the long-armed ape that had finished recovering its strength slowly walked in front of Yuhauran, clenched its left hand into a fist and punched its chest, then bowed and thanked him. Little friend, I, the long-armed ape, will never forget your kindness in saving my life in the face of danger. If you have any errands in the future, just say the word and I, the long-armed ape, will definitely do my best. Senior long-armed ape, you don't have to be so courteous. Lending a hand is what this junior should do. After hurriedly exchanging pleasantries, Yuhauran took out a purple gold invitation card from his storage ring and handed it to the long-armed ape with a smile on his face. Senior long-armed ape, this junior will be holding a wedding in Xianyang City of the Emperor Qin's empire in 13 days. I hope you can attend as my family and friend. Hearing Yuhauran's invitation, the long-armed ape's heart immediately felt a trace of warmth. The long-armed ape extended its furry hand and took the purple gold invitation card, patting its chest as it promised. Chapter 1170. Death Valley, Inner Valley. Thank you, Senior. Yuhauran was pleasantly surprised when he heard that the long-armed ape had agreed to attend his wedding. In fact, he had personally invited the long-armed ape to attend the wedding not only to increase the number and quality of his guests, but also to use the long-armed ape's strength to shock some people with ulterior motives and ensure that the wedding would proceed smoothly. After all, marriage was different from engagement. There were some things that were not suitable for him to solve personally. You don't have to be so polite, young friend, the long-armed ape said with a smile after solemnly keeping the invitation card. You must be very tired after fighting against the black gas for half a month. I happen to have some things to deal with, so I'll take my leave first. The time to prepare for the wedding was very tight. Not only did he not have time to cultivate, but he also had to return to Xianyang City to refine pills at any time. Therefore, Yuhauran, who had settled one of his worries, immediately clasped his fist and said goodbye. Okay, then I won't see you off. The long-armed ape nodded and did not ask him to stay, because it was in urgent need to recover to its peak strength and then go after the 9 snakes who dared to sneak up on it. However, when it saw that Yuhauran did not leave the inner valley of Death Valley, but instead sped up into the depths of the inner valley, it could not help but ask with its divine thought, "Young friend, what are you going to do?" Senior, according to what I know, there seems to be a rank 3, first-grade blue blood dark Een flower in the inner valley of Death Valley. Stopping, Yuhauran did not hide his purpose of going deep into the inner valley, and said truthfully, "And this blue blood dark Een flower is exactly what I need. Does it have 9 jade-green petals with a red dot in the center of each petal?" Hearing Yuhauran mention the rank 3, first-grade blue blood dark Een flower, the long-armed ape thought carefully and then asked in an uncertain tone, "That's right." Yuhauran quickly nodded and confirmed. After getting confirmation from Yuhauran, the long-armed ape appeared in front of him and asked with a smile, "Young friend, do you know what the guardian beast of that spiritual flower is?" This. Yuhauran didn't know how to answer long-armed ape's question. According to his experience in the inner valley of Death Valley in his previous life, the strange beast guarding the jade blood dark Een flower was only an early 7th grade martial saint profound Een python with the bloodline of an ancient divine beast, the snake transformation. But in this world that had been affected by the reverse energy of the demon god's ancient tomb, who knew just what boundary the profound Een python had reached? Little friend, you're too reckless. It's very easy for you to fall into a fatal crisis. Seeing that Yuhauran did not even know the guardian beast of the jasper blood dark flower and dared to barge into the depths of the valley, the long-armed ape reminded him with a serious expression, "Senior, you're right." Without refuting long-armed ape's criticism, Yuhauran accepted it humbly. "Little friend, the strange beast guarding the jade blood dark Een flower is a profound Een python with the bloodline of an ancient divine beast, the snake transformation. It's also one of the only 3 venerable realm beasts in the inner valley of Death Valley. Although he already knew that the profound Een python with the bloodline of an ancient divine beast, the snake transformation, would have an earth-shattering change in its grade and strength, he never thought that the profound Een python would become a peerless beast of the venerable realm. Fortunately, with the help of Thaling, the profound Een python was not in too much danger. Therefore, Yuhauran was only shocked when he first heard the news. He quickly calmed down and thanked Long-Armed Ape with cupped fists. "Thank you for your reminder, Senior." Although Yuhauran's actions were a little reckless, the fact that he could calm down so quickly showed that his state of mind was not bad. This made Long-Armed Ape very satisfied. At the same time, he could not help but want to know the reason why he was looking for the jade blood dark Een flower. "Senior, this junior's fiancé possesses the profound Een soulfire. I wish to use the jade blood profound Een flower to raise the grade of the profound Een soulfire and assist her in advancing to the peak of the 9th grade Martial Saint realm in a short period of time, so as to obtain a good ranking in the Hidden Dragon rankings." Vaguely guessing the intentions of the long-armed ape, Yuhauran did not hide anything and said, "I see." After hearing Yuhauran's explanation, Long-Armed Ape nodded to show that he understood. Then, it disappeared on the spot with a method that Yuhauran could not understand. After only 20 seconds, Long-Armed Ape reappeared on the spot with a jade blood dark Een flower uprooted in his hand. "Senior, this..." Although he had already guessed the intention of Long-Armed Ape, when he really took the jade blood dark Een flower, Yuhauran was excited and a little embarrassed to reach out his hand to take it. Using demonic power to wrap the jade blood dark Een flower and send it directly to Yuhauran, Long-Armed Ape explained with a smile. "Little Xian has cultivated a total of 3 jade blood dark Een flowers these years. One is for him to use, one is for his dual cultivation partner, and the last one is for me. With my current cultivation and strength, this jade blood dark Een flower is not very useful anymore. Today, I will give it to you as a gift. Senior, thank you for your gift." After taking out a jade box made of green jade from his storage ring and putting the soil into the box, Yuhauran cupped his fists and thanked him. After waving his hand to tell Yuhauran not to be so polite, Long-Armed Ape thought that a jade blood dark Een flower was not enough to compensate for saving his life. He immediately stretched out his furry hand and tore the space in front of him. Then, countless 4th grade and 3rd grade spiritual stones, spiritual herbs, spiritual flowers, spiritual medicine, and sealed spiritual veins and thousands of precious treasures floated out from the torn space. "Little Xian, let's not talk about saving your life for now." Letting go of the torn space, Long-Armed Ape said with a smile, "Since you have invited me to your wedding, as your senior, I should give you some gift." Saying this, Long-Armed Ape pointed at the thousands of treasures floating in the air and smiled. "Pick anything you like. As long as you like it, take it all." Just as Yuhauran was about to decline the gift, he unexpectedly saw a beautiful flower in the shape of a butterfly among the thousands of treasures floating in the air. Using his spiritual sense to bring the flower to himself, Yuhauran carefully observed it. Immediately, a look of surprise appeared on his face. "Senior, this is a 5th grade level 9 butterfly flower. I will be thick-skinned and accept it," Yuhauran happily requested as he reached out to pinch the flower. "Little Xian, I have already said that as long as you like it, you can choose any of these treasures." In response to Yuhauran's request, Long-Armed Ape waved his hand and said. In response, Yuhauran smiled and nodded. Then, he lifted his head and continued to observe the thousands of treasures floating in the air. Chapter 1171. Death Valley, Inner Valley. Similarly, he used his divine sense to bring the bead that emitted the aura of water and fire to him. However, before he could really examine it, the yin-yang heavenly fire origin that had been dormant above his dantian suddenly began to riot. Hurriedly using his divine sense to calm the riot of the yin-yang heavenly fire origin, Yuhaoran carefully observed the bead floating in front of him. Then, a look of surprise emerged in his heart. This was because the bead emitting the aura of water and fire contained a huge amount of pure water and fire attribute flame energy. The 5 elements restrained each other, but they also promoted each other. If the yin-yang heavenly fire origin absorbed the 2 different types of flames in this bead, then the yin-yang heavenly fire origin would be able to level up. He would also be able to use the yin-yang heavenly fire origin to perform a secret martial skill with enough power to injure a peerless expert of the martial saint realm. Senior, this junior will accept this bead. Using the special wooden box to shield the aura of the flames and prevent the yin-yang heavenly fire origin from becoming restless, Yuhaoran still used a negotiating tone. In response, the long-armed ape only smiled and did not say anything more. Just as Yuhaoran put away the wooden box containing the bead, Thaling reminded him in his knowledge see, Yuhaoran, the spirit fruit in the shape of a fat man in the far west. Using his divine sense to bring the spirit fruit in front of him, an aura that could instantly calm his mind was emitted from the spirit fruit that was shaped like a fat man. Thaling, what is this? Reaching out to hold the spirit fruit, Yuhaoran asked. Buddha heart fruit, a top spirit fruit known as one of the 10 great treasures of the martial path of Buddhism during the Middle Ages. It can assist a Buddhist cultivator's physical body to reach the martial saint realm, which is to become an arhat. Thaling's eyes revealed a look of reminiscence as he spoke in a complicated tone. Thaling, what effect does the Buddha heart fruit have on me? Yuhaoran was not interested in the arhat realm. He only wanted to know what benefits the Buddha heart fruit could bring him. Although it won't have any effect on you, it can help your master, Feng Qingyun, to raise his physical body to the brink of breaking through to the martial venerable realm in one fell swoop, and completely unlock his fate with Buddhism, Thaling explained. Yuhaoran tightened his grip on the Buddha heart fruit as a complicated look flashed across his eyes. In the end, he let out a long sigh and placed the Buddha heart fruit into the wooden box he had taken out. Just as he was about to bid farewell with cupped fists, the Thaling in his sea of consciousness reminded him once again. Yuhaoran, do you see the 9 beads in the southeast corner? I see it. Yuhaoran raised his head to take a closer look and nodded. Bring it here, Thaling said. Thaling, as the saying goes, do not do things more than 3 times. In the face of Thaling's order, Yuhaoran did not immediately do as he was told. Instead, he patiently advised, although the long-armed ape is grateful that I saved his life and allowed us to choose these treasures, we still have to know our limits and not give him the impression that we are insatiable. After all, when the wedding is officially held, I still need the long-armed ape to help control the situation and prevent anyone from ruining the wedding ceremony. In the face of Yuhaoran's persuasion, Thaling only smiled and said one sentence, which made him immediately change his mind. Then, he used his divine thought to store the 9 beads into the victor. Yuhaoran, I can use these 9 beads to refine a set of attack and defense that is not inferior to a martial venerable realm magic weapon in terms of power. Yuhaoran, if there is nothing too important during this period of time, try not to disturb me. This is because I plan to use the victor's ability to accelerate time and try to refine these 9 beads into a real martial venerable realm magic weapon. After carefully observing the quality of the 9 beads, Thaling was pleasantly surprised and had an even bolder idea in his heart. Got it, Yuhaoran immediately replied. Then, he smiled and gestured to the long-armed ape. Senior, I have finished my selection. You can keep these treasures. Seeing that Yuhaoran had only picked 4 treasures, the long-armed ape could not help but frown and suggest, my young friend, among the remaining treasures, there are many treasures whose quality and level are far superior to the 4 treasures that you have just picked. Why don't you pick a few more? Senior, I still have to continue working on the wedding, so I will take my leave for now. Yu Haoran shook his head and gestured with his fists clasped together. In that case, I will not say anything more. Nodding his head, the long-armed ape waved his hand and kept the 1,000 treasures floating in midair, then gave a promise. My young friend, I will attend your wedding on time. Senior, I will take my leave. After nodding his head, Yu Haoran turned around and left the inner valley. He then went straight to the outer valley of Death Valley. Heaven's will is in chaos. The Honorable Realm and Emperor Realm experts are about to appear. The God State experts who are hidden in the void will descend soon too. It seems that I, Old Ape, will have to leave Death Valley too. Looking at Yu Haoran, who was leaving the inner valley quickly, the long-armed ape's eyes revealed a trace of solemnity as he muttered to himself. Heart Moon Sect, one of the third-rate sects affiliated to the 100 Chi Gate. With the internal strife of the 100 Chi Gate for close to 100 years, the overall strength of the sect was severely damaged. This caused the affiliated sects and families to be disloyal. The Heart Moon Sect was the sect that wanted to break away from the control of the 100 Chi Gate the most. They were the sect that sought to be independent. According to the geographical location, the Heart Moon Sect's base that was closer to the north would allow them to obtain more spiritual energy of heaven and earth. At the same time, with two outstanding sect leaders, the overall strength of the Heart Moon Sect had been steadily increasing. They were about to surpass the 100 Chi Gate. If not for Yu Haoran's appearance and Feng Qingyun's martial sage realm cultivation, the Heart Moon Sect that had accumulated strength to the peak would have declared independence long ago. However, after Yu Haoran left the 100 Chi Gate and did not return for more than a year, the eldest senior brother of the Qingyun Peak, Chu Zhongyu, took the initiative to step down from the position of sect leader. Feng Qingyun even left the sect to travel. This caused the Heart Moon Sect's barely suppressed ambition to become independent to be ignited again. Stop right there. Looking at the young man in a dark blue robe who appeared in front of the mountain gate with a faint smile on his face, the Heart Moon Sect disciple who was in charge of guarding the mountain gate shouted loudly, "Please inform Zhang Ro that an old friend has come to visit." Facing the Heart Moon Sect disciple's stern reprimand, the young man in blue did not care at all. Another lecher who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth and covets senior sister Zhang's beauty. After hearing the purpose of the young man in blue's visit to the Heart Moon Sect, the disciple who had shouted earlier said to the junior brother behind him with a face of disdain, "Senior sister Zhang is already eldest senior brother's woman. Whoever dares to have any ideas about senior sister Zhang will be eldest senior brother's enemy." While nodding his head in agreement with his senior martial brother's speculation, his junior martial brother, who was only a 5th-grade martial warrior, took out an ordinary iron sword and said with a sinister smile, Chapter 1172. Heart Moon Sect in front of the mountain gate. Looking at the 3 Heart Moon Sect disciples who took out ordinary swords, the young man in blue could not help but frown and remind them with a displeased expression, "I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to catch up with junior sister Zhang Ro." Boy, there is only one person who can catch up with senior sister Zhang. That is the only son of the Heart Moon Sect's sect master, our eldest senior brother, Chang Haohua. The Heart Moon Sect disciple who took out an ordinary sword first showed his loyalty while waving his sword at the young man in blue. Looking at the Heart Moon Sect disciple whose sword technique was full of flaws, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the young man in blue. He slowly stretched out the fingers of his left hand and directly clamped the body of the long sword. Then, with a slight force, the long sword was broken into 2. "Senior brothers, the opponent is very strong. Let's attack together." With just the strength of his fingers, he could easily break the long sword that contained the yuan power of a martial warrior. The Heart Moon Sect disciple who took the lead to attack could not help but change his expression. He then called out to the 2 senior brothers behind him, Seeing that the Heart Moon sect disciple was still acting recklessly, the young man in blue, who had obviously lost his patience, glared fiercely at the 3 Heart Moon sect disciples. The Heart Moon sect disciple, whose mind was instantly injured, spat out blood and fell to the ground. Then, the young man in blue directly released a powerful divine thought and swept through the entire mountain gate of the Heart Moon sect. When he saw that Zhang Ro, who he was looking for, was lying happily in the arms of a handsome young man with a somewhat feminine temperament, he could not help but frown. After quickly retracting his divine thought, the young man in blue shouted at the mountain gate of the Heart Moon sect. "Zhang Ro, come out and see me." The roar was deafening, and everyone in the Heart Moon sect could hear it clearly. "Who is being presumptuous in front of my Heart Moon sect?" Along with the questioning voice, a middle-aged beautiful woman, whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th grade martial royal realm, quickly appeared in front of the young man in blue. "You are?" The young man in blue in front of her looked a little familiar, but she could not remember at the moment. The middle-aged beautiful woman could not help but ask. In the face of the middle-aged beautiful woman's questioning, the young man in blue looked at her coldly. Just like the 3 Heart Moon sect disciples earlier, the middle-aged beautiful woman, who groaned in pain, had a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, and her face instantly turned pale. "None of you are allowed to act rashly." Turning her head, the beautiful middle-aged woman sternly ordered the few elders who were rushing over. Although the other party did not reveal his identity, just a cold gaze was enough to directly injure his mind. It was enough to show that the blue-clothed young man in front of him was an expert that he absolutely could not provoke. "Zhang Ro, I'm counting to 3. If you, the young of the Moon sect, the of the Moon sect disciple of the Heart Moon sect." After retracting his cold gaze, the blue-robed young man waited in front of the mountain gate for another 3 minutes. When he realized that Zhang Ro still hadn't appeared, he used his powerful divine sense to scan the area again. When he saw that Zhang Ro not only ignored his shout just now, but also did something improper with that young man in the courtyard, the corners of the blue-clothed young man's mouth curled up slightly. His voice was cold as he threatened. "Not good, it's you, Howren." The roar, mixed with telepathic thoughts, finally woke up Zhang Ro, who had fallen into confusion. After feeling the threatening voice that was as cold as frost, Zhang Ro's boiling hot blood instantly cooled down. She then stretched out her hand and pushed away the young man who was pressing down on her body. There was a trace of panic in her expression as she said, "Senior, Yu Howren from the 100 Chi Gates Qingyun Peak is here. Sister Ro, don't worry." Although the young man felt unusually annoyed that he was forcefully interrupted, when he saw Zhang Ro's flustered expression, he still forcefully suppressed his anger and comforted her with a smile. "Half a month ago, my father successfully broke through the martial saint realm and became one of the top experts in the Tianxian continent." Pulling Zhang Ro into his arms again, the young man patted her shoulder lightly and said with disdain, "Although Yu Howren's reputation is very high, it comes more from his alchemy skills. His own cultivation and strength are definitely not very strong. He will definitely yield in front of my father's powerful strength. So, it won't be too late to meet him at the gate after we're done. Brother Hua, I miss you." After hearing the young man's comforting words, the panic in Zhang Ro's eyes disappeared. Then, she looked at the other party lovingly and shouted with a voice full of endless temptation, "Little vixen, I'm coming." The hot-blooded young man laughed wildly and suddenly pounced on her. 3, 2, 1. After counting down, the young man in blue could not help but sneer when he saw that Zhang Ro not only ignored his threat but also continued to do the deed with the young man. Then, he quickly formed a seal with his 10 fingers. Then, together with his powerful divine thought, he directly used a secret technique that could change the scene. Form displacement. Accompanied by a soft shout, a courtyard that was originally located in the Heart Moon sect was directly moved to the front of the gate by the secret technique. How Hua. Looking at the two people who were doing the deed, the middle-aged beautiful woman was shocked by the terrifying mien of the young man in blue. She immediately shouted at the young man who was crawling on Zhang Ro. "Who dares to disturb me?" The independent courtyard was his personal space. Now, not only did someone barge in without permission, but they also dared to ruin his good deed. This made the young man who had already taken advantage of her immediately curse furiously. However, when he saw that the person who disturbed his good deed was actually the middle-aged beautiful woman, the young man immediately shouted obediently, "Mother! Don't you find it embarrassing? Hurry up and put on your clothes." Looking at the naked young man, the middle-aged beautiful woman frowned and reprimanded him. While putting on his clothes in a panic, the young man looked around the situation. When he saw the elders standing behind the middle-aged beautiful woman and the indifferent young man in blue, his face suddenly revealed a look of disbelief. "Zhang Ro greets you, Shixiang." Zhang Ro, who also noticed the crowd at the scene, put on her clothes in a panic and walked slowly to the young man in blue. She was trembling with fear as she greeted him. "You are Yu Haoran." When Chang Haohua, who quickly put on his clothes, heard Zhang Ro's address of the young man in blue, his shy expression was immediately replaced by contempt. His tone was even more arrogant as he asked. When the middle-aged beautiful woman and the elders learned that the young man in blue in front of them was Yu Haoran, who was famous in the southern region, they could not help but change their expressions. Then, the middle-aged beautiful woman gave a look to an elder who was at the peak of the third-grade martial king. The elder who was reminded by the middle-aged beautiful woman immediately turned and entered the gate. Chapter 1173. Heart Moon Sect in front of the mountain gate. Zhang Ro, I've already said that if you don't appear in front of me within the count of 3, then I will take back everything that I gave you. As if facing a stranger, Yu Haoran stretched out his hand and ordered forcefully. "Hand over the larva of the 9th heaven cloudy butterfly immediately." No. Facing Yu Haoran's forceful demand for the larva of the 9th heaven cloudy butterfly, Zhang Ro immediately shook her head and refused. At the same time, she retreated to Chang Haohua's side and said with a smile, "Yu Shixiang, you know that the 9-legged worm has already signed a beast pet contract with me in front of the Een Spring in the Blue Moon Secret Realm. Even if I want to hand it over, you can't take it away." The 9-legged worm was the larva of the sovereign beast 9th heaven cloudy butterfly. When they heard Yu Haoran and Zhang Ro mention the 9-legged worm larva of the 9th heaven cloudy butterfly, the middle-aged beautiful woman and Chang Haohua looked at each other and saw the greed in each other's eyes. Chang Haohua reached out and hugged Zhang Ro's waist, as if he was doing it for her. On the other hand, the middle-aged beautiful woman secretly crushed a jade talisman and summoned a few good friends that she had made when she went out for training. "Zhang Ro, since I asked for the larva of the 9th heaven cloudy butterfly, then I have a way to remove the beast pet contract on the 9-legged worm." In the face of Zhang Ro's threat of using the beast pet contract to counter his threat, Yu Haoran said with a cold smile, "So, hand over the larva of the 9th heaven cloudy butterfly immediately." "Yu Haoran, even if I don't hand over the 9-legged worm, what can you do to me?" With Chang Haohua's support, Zhang Ro immediately provoked him. "Good, very good." Seeing Zhang Ro provoking him recklessly after having Chang Haohua's support, Yu Haoran's face was filled with anger as he repeatedly cheered and walked towards Zhang Ro and Chang Haohua. "Attack together." Seeing that Yu Haoran was about to attack, the middle-aged beautiful woman ordered the few martial emperor elders behind her. Then, she stood in front of Zhang Ro and Chang Haohua in a flash. The beautiful middle-aged woman, who had taken out her natal sword, asked coldly, "Yu Haoran, what are you trying to do? If you don't want to die, then get the hell out of here." Yu Haoran coldly looked at the beautiful middle-aged woman and berated her with a murderous aura. "What a joke. In front of my Heart Moon Sect's mountain gate, you asked me, the wife of the sect leader, to scram." Faced with Yu Haoran's merciless rebuke, the middle-aged beauty angrily questioned. Yu Haoran, aren't you being too arrogant? Are you not putting our 100 Qi gate in your eyes? I've already given you a chance to live. Since you want to die, then don't blame me, Yu Haoran, for being merciless. Yu Haoran said with a calm expression. His murderous eyes were quickly replaced by emotionless ripples. Then, he stretched out his left hand and directly grabbed the beautiful middle-aged woman's neck. Looking at the slowly reaching hand, a trace of disdain flashed in the beautiful middle-aged woman's eyes. She wanted to wave her natal sword in her hand and directly cut off the hand that was reaching out. She was horrified to find that she couldn't even raise her arm, let alone use her yuan qi and soul power. Therefore, she could only watch as Yu Haoran stretched out his hand and slowly pinched her neck. Let go of my mother! Let go of my wife! Just as Yu Haoran stretched out his hand to pinch the beautiful middle-aged woman's neck, the voices of Chang Haohua and a middle-aged man sounded in his ears. Turning his head to look at the middle-aged man who rushed over like lightning, Yu Haoran's emotionless eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Because he didn't expect that in the third-rate Heart Moon sect, there was actually an expert who had broken through to the early first-grade martial saint realm. It was no wonder that among all the third-rate sects affiliated to the 100 Qi Gate, the Heart Moon sect was the first to not listen to the orders and delay the tribute of resources. It turned out that the top experts and overall strength they had were not inferior to the 100 Qi Gate at all. You want me to let go? After slowly lifting the beautiful middle-aged woman, Yu Haoran asked with a cold smile. Yu Haoran, if you let go of my wife now and kneel down to apologize, on account of the relationship between the Heart Moon sect and the 100 Qi Gate, I will let you off. The Heart Moon sect's leader, Chang Yunyi, who slowly landed in front of Chang Haohua, threatened coldly. If not, I will definitely lead the experts of the sect to slaughter your 100 Qi Gate. Crack! Just as Chang Yunyi's threatening voice fell, a crisp sound suddenly sounded in the silent Heart Moon sect. Accompanied by the crisp cracking sound, the head of the beautiful middle-aged woman, whose neck was in Yu Haoran's hand, tilted and her life force quickly disappeared. Following that, a strong murderous aura immediately rose from Chang Yunyi's body. Yu Haoran, you dare to kill my wife. I will definitely turn your bones into ashes and then slaughter the tens of thousands of people in your 100 Qi Gate to avenge my wife. While Chang Yunyi was furious and threatening, he directly mobilized all of his origin power and soul power, intending to torture Yu Haoran after capturing him alive. But at this moment, a hand that was slowly reaching out appeared in front of him in an inconceivable way. The palm patted his shoulder gently, and the origin power and soul power that he mobilized just now returned to his dantian and sea of consciousness without his control. Following that, the palm that patted his shoulder directly grabbed his neck and lifted him up. In the past 6 months of training, I, Yu Haoran, have become much gentler. Otherwise, with your threat just now, the entire Heart Moon sect would definitely not grow. Looking up at Chang Yunyi, who was lifted up by him, Yu Haoran's seemingly gentle words made everyone present shiver involuntarily. Yu Haoran, what is your cultivation? When his neck was grabbed, although a strong force directly sealed his dantian and sea of consciousness, making Chang Yunyi unable to mobilize his origin power and soul power, he could still use a part of his divine sense. To be able to directly disperse the origin power and soul power of a first-grade martial saint expert and suppress the use of the power of law of a martial saint expert, Chang Yunyi was terrified and couldn't help but want to know the true cultivation and strength of Yu Haoran at this moment. The cultivation of an early 9th-grade martial saint, infinitely close to the strength of a peerless martial saint expert. When he killed Chang Yunyi's life, Yu Haoran fulfilled his last wish and replied. Staring at Yu Haoran with his eyes wide open, Chang Yunyi's eyes immediately revealed a look of disbelief. But the look of disbelief remained on Chang Yunyi's face forever. Because when fulfilling his last wish, Yu Haoran's hand that was grabbing his neck suddenly exerted force. When he wiped out the life force of his body, he also directly destroyed the soul in his sea of consciousness. Looking at his father, who was thrown on the ground by Yu Haoran, Chang Haohua's eyes revealed an uncontrollable panic. Forcefully throwing Zhang Ro, who was in his arms, towards Yu Haoran, Chang Haohua immediately turned around and jumped out of the Heart Moon sect. Chapter 1174. Heart Moon Sect, in front of the mountain gate. With a wave of his sleeve, Yu Haoran sent Zhang Ro, who had been thrown over by Chang Haohua, flying. He raised his head and looked at the few people who were running in all directions. A disdainful sneer flashed across his eyes. After that, Yu Haoran used his mind to wake up the black bear that was sleeping in the beast pet space. He pointed at the few people who were running for their lives and instructed, "Black Bear, directly smash those few people who escaped into meat patties for me." Roar. The black bear, who had not seen blood for a long time, immediately roared excitedly at the sky and chased after the few elders who had reached the martial emperor realm. After handing over the few people who were running in all directions to the black bear, Yu Haoran did not continue to pay attention to them. Instead, he strode over to Zhang Ro, who had been knocked unconscious by his strong wind. Squatting down in front of Zhang Ro, Yu Haoran said with a gentle expression, "Little fellow, come out." After hearing Yu Haoran's call, a worm the size of a grain of rice crawled out from Zhang Ro's hair. Looking at the blue-clothed young man who had knocked out its master, the nine-legged worm's tiny eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. "Looks like you really have the temperament of a child. How long has it been and you already don't remember me, Yu Haoran?" Seeing the bewildered look in the nine-legged worm's eyes, Yu Haoran reminded it with a smile. "Blue Moon's secret realm, on the mountain peak where the Een Spring was, the person who personally pulled you out of the grass." After hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, the nine-legged worm's tiny eyes flashed with a trace of understanding and its little head immediately nodded. But immediately after, it turned its head to look at the unconscious Zhang Ro and a trace of anger appeared in its eyes. "Nine-legged worm, I'm sorry." Feeling the surrounding temperature drop rapidly, Yu Haoran knew that the nine-legged worm, whose mind was still in its infancy, was gradually becoming angry under the influence of the beast pet contract. He immediately apologized guiltily. "With your ultimate honorable nine heavens cloud-colored butterfly form, no one in this world can restrict your freedom, let alone control your life and death." After hearing Yu Haoran's apology, a trace of doubt flashed across the nine-legged worm's tiny eyes. It did not understand why the human in front of it would say something that it did not understand at all. However, even though the nine-legged worm couldn't understand his words, it knew that the human in front of it had no ill intentions towards it. The childish nine-legged worm's anger immediately dissipated, and the surrounding temperature returned to normal. He took out the wooden box containing the butterfly flowers from his storage ring and opened it in front of the nine-legged bug. The nine-legged bug immediately jumped into the wooden box excitedly and began to devour the butterfly flowers with all its might. "Little fellow, a rank 5, rank 9 butterfly flower is enough for you to complete the first stage of butterfly transformation," Yu Haoran instructed with a smile as he watched the nine-legged worm devouring the butterfly flowers with all its might. "At that time, when your life form changes, I will be able to use a secret technique to remove the beast pet contract between you and Zhang Ro and return your freedom." The nine-legged worm had to go through 9 metamorphoses before becoming the 9 heavens cloud-colored butterfly, which was renowned throughout the ancient era. Every transformation into an insect, as well as every transformation into a butterfly, was equivalent to the beginning of a new life form. At this time, the beast pet contract imprinted in the heavenly Tao's soul would be temporarily detached from the contract. As long as he could find a way to change the target of the beast pet contract before its life form changed, he would be able to successfully remove the contract between the nine-legged worm, or rather, the 9 heavens cloud-colored butterfly, and Zhang Ro. Of course, among the countless exotic beasts on the Tianxian continent, only exotic beasts that could change their life form would have the opportunity to break free from the beast pet contract. And it seemed like he was the only one who knew the secret and method to break free from the beast pet contract. As the unique energy contained in the butterfly flowers continued to increase the nine-legged worm's grade, it also helped it quickly gain sentience. Although the nine-legged worm didn't understand what Yu Haoran's instructions meant at first, it understood its condition after the butterfly flowers were fully consumed and its sentience was fully awakened. Before entering the butterfly state, the nine-legged worm bowed to Yu Haoran and thanked him. "Young human expert, Little Bug thanks you for your help." "Nine-legged worm, there's no need to thank me." Yu Haoran waved his hand in response to the nine-legged worm's gratitude. "Because after you've completed the butterfly transformation process, I still have something I need your help with. As long as it's within my power, I'll do my best," the nine-legged worm promised with a nod. "Nine-legged worm, don't worry about transforming your physique. Leave the rest to me," Yu Haoran promised with a nod. After receiving Yu Haoran's promise, the nine-legged worm slowly closed its eyes. Countless wisps of white mist emerged from its body and quickly enveloped it. Gently placing the wooden box on the ground, Yu Haoran immediately mobilized his divine telekinesis to search for any living creatures within a 100-mile radius. Finally, he found an earth dragon, also known as an earthworm. Using his primary energy to fix the earthworm to the side of the wooden box, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and quickly formed a seal with his 10 fingers. He performed the demonic path's secret technique, grafting flowers onto trees, allowing the earthworm's vitality to replace the nine-legged worm's. In the end, he successfully shifted the target of the beast pet contract. While the nine-legged worm matured and broke free from the contract, Zhang Ro also completed a new pet contract with the earthworm. Looking at the earthworm slowly crawling into Zhang Ro's hair, Yu Haoran could almost imagine Zhang Ro's rage after she woke up. He couldn't help but chuckle. He reached out to cover the wooden box with the nine-legged worm's pupa and put it into an empty storage bag before hanging it at his waist. Soon after, when Yu Haoran got up and was about to leave the Heart Moon sect, the Heart Moon sect disciple who had been severely injured by Yu Haoran's sharp gaze suddenly spoke. "Vice sect leader Yu." "Yes." Stopping the mobilization of his primary energy, Yu Haoran coldly asked. "Vice sect leader Yu, if you can guarantee that when the Heart Moon sect is destroyed, this disciple will not be harmed in any way, then this disciple will tell you a secret." Facing Yu Haoran's cold questioning, the 5th-grade martial warrior disciple said fearlessly. Using his mind, he took out a jade slip from his storage ring. After leaving behind a trace of his primary energy that could be used at the peak of a 9th-grade martial king, he directly threw the jade slip to the disciple. Life-saving jade pendant. It can withstand an all-out attack from a peak 9th-grade martial king expert. Yu Haoran indifferently explained. Vice sect leader Yu, the reason why Chongyani was able to break through to the martial saint realm was because he obtained a treasure some time ago. Ecstatic, the Heart Moon sect disciple hurriedly said as he put away the jade slip. In a flash, he appeared in front of Chongyani and bent down to take off the storage ring on his finger. Yu Haoran carefully checked it but did not find the treasure that the disciple mentioned. Chapter 1175. Heart Moon Sect, in front of the mountain gate. Vice Sect Leader Yu, the treasure that can increase Chongyani's cultivation is actually a milky white stone that is about 1 meter tall. It seems that it can't be stored in a storage device, so it can only be stored in the Heart Moon Sect's treasury. Seeing the murderous look in Yu Haoran's eyes, the Heart Moon Sect's disciple quickly explained. It was stored in the Heart Moon Sect's treasury. After hearing the disciple's reminder, Yu Haoran immediately released his powerful divine sense and quickly found the exact location of the treasury. "Kid, if you dare to lie to me, then the destruction of your divine soul is an extravagant hope for you. Before leaving for the treasury, Yuhauran threatened with a murderous look. Vice sect leader Yu, I will stay in front of the mountain gate until you find the treasure, then I will leave the Heart Moon sect. Facing Yuhauran's threat, the Heart Moon sect's disciple quickly expressed his position. Nodding with satisfaction, Yuhauran soared into the air and went straight to the treasury of the Heart Moon Forbidden Area. Looking at the green door of the treasury that was made of mysterious cyan iron, he didn't need to mobilize any spirit power or soul power. With just the physical strength of an early 9th grade martial saint, he smashed the green door into pieces with one punch. After experiencing the baptism of the pure spiritual liquid on the first floor of the Gu Liang family's treasury, Yuhauran's heart didn't waver at all in the face of the faint spiritual qi that emerged from the first floor of the Heart Moon sect's treasury. Stepping into the treasury, he glanced at the more than 20 wooden shelves on the first floor of the treasury and found that the highest quality spiritual stones were only 105th grade first grade spiritual stones. He didn't bother to collect them at all and directly went to the second floor of the treasury through the stairs. The highest grade elixir was only a 6th grade 7th grade earth spirit elixir that could increase the martial royal realm. After that, Yuhauran also didn't have the intention to collect them. However, on the more than 10 wooden shelves that stored medicinal herbs, he accidentally found a 5th grade 3rd grade illusory spirit herb that had long been extinct. Illusory spirit herb was a kind of strange spiritual herb that could make living creatures hallucinate. It had the effect of increasing the divine soul and mental cultivation. With the illusory spirit herb as the main medicine and 8 other spiritual herbs that also contained a trace of hallucinogenic energy, it could refine an illusory spirit elixir that could greatly increase the mental cultivation. Although the elixir refined by the 3rd grade 5th grade 3rd grade illusory spirit herb didn't have any effect, for Wu Jingjun, who had the bloodthirsty physique, it was indeed a miraculous elixir that could help him quickly increase his cultivation and strength. Putting away the wooden box containing the illusory spirit grass, Yuhauran used his divine sense to check it again. After making sure he had not missed anything, he went up the stairs to the 3rd floor of the treasury. Sect leader had swords of the treasures sword was B of the heaven treasures. However, although Yuhauran didn't carefully check the hundreds of refining materials on the west side of the treasury's 3rd floor, he used his divine thought to put them all into an empty storage ring. He planned to pick out suitable materials for refining when he was free in Thaling. After entering the 4th floor, he used his divine thought to scan the dozens of books on the wooden shelves. He didn't stop and continued to enter the 5th floor. However, as soon as he stepped into the 5th floor of the treasury, the heavenly mandate mantra that he had created suddenly began to operate on its own without his control. Forcibly suppressing a trace of panic in his heart, Yuhauran immediately looked up at the middle of the 5th floor and saw a milky white stone placed on the ground. Life is both rootless and real. Life exists in the future, the present, and the past. Life can be controlled and manipulated. Life can be determined by heaven and changed by spirit. Life. When Yuhauran's gaze landed on the milky white stone, an ethereal voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire 5th floor of the treasury. This is the legendary Destiny Stone. Thaling, who was refining instruments in Victor's time-accelerated space, was suddenly alarmed by the mysterious voice. Without any hesitation, he immediately separated a part of his divine thought to leave the time-accelerated space. After seeing the milky white stone on the 5th floor through the space in his knowledge sea, a special aura directly awakened the countless years of memories about the milky white stone in front of him. Thaling's voice trembled as he muttered to himself. When the Destiny Stone appears, the heavenly secrets will be in chaos. The heavenly calamity will come and destroy everything. Will the legendary great calamity of heaven and earth happen in this world? Yuhauran, who was completely attracted by the milky white stone, didn't hear Thalink's words in his knowledge sea. He subconsciously walked to the milky white stone and stretched out his left hand to touch it. However, the moment his left hand touched the stone, the milky white stone immediately shattered. Then, a strand of milky white energy directly merged into his body. The Son of Destiny. Seeing the milky white energy merge into Yuhauran's body, Thaling immediately became excited. He adjusted the order of refining instruments and used a part of his divine thought to continue purifying the impurities in the 9 pearls. Thaling's divine thought left Victor and appeared in Yuhauran's knowledge sea. He quietly used his divine thought to carefully track the milky white energy that merged into Yuhauran's body. Although he didn't track the milky white energy in the end, through the subtle changes in Yuhauran's physique, he knew that the legend of the Destiny Stone in the Dusty Memories was actually happening to Yuhauran. Thinking of the good relationship he had with Yuhauran and the respect Yuhauran had for him, Thaling felt extremely fortunate. He was glad that he didn't have evil intentions like the mysterious yellow saber, didn't stay out of this matter like the void mirror, didn't look down on him like the Xianyuan sword, and didn't act selfishly like the heaven refining pot. Otherwise, not only would he have lost the opportunity to reconstruct his body, but even his main body, Victor, would have been destroyed in the future great calamity of the world. Slowly opening his eyes, Yuhauran couldn't suppress the joy in his eyes. Although the milky white energy that merged into his body didn't directly increase his cultivation and strength, it allowed him to clearly feel the changes in his physique. This kind of change in his physique had nothing to do with talent, potential, comprehension, or perseverance. It was related to his own destiny. Of course, what really surprised Yuhauran was that the milky white energy that had fused into his body had not only eliminated the hidden dangers of his self-created heavenly mandate cultivation method, but also automatically made up for the deficiencies of his cultivation method and martial skill. It made his foundation more solid and gave him a greater chance of breaking through to the martial venerable realm in the future. Chapter 1176. Heart Moon Sect, in the 5th floor of the Treasure House. The rank 4 primary ginseng pill that could directly raise the cultivation of a 9th grade martial saint. Yuhauran picked up the pill bottle placed on the jade platform and poured out the pills inside. He glanced at them and nodded with satisfaction. Then, he looked at the treasures placed on the 2nd jade platform. It was a fist-sized essence stone. Yuhauran, this essence stone is called Earth Dragon Essence. It is a relatively precious material for refining weapons. Can assist in refining weapons of the highest grade of the Sage Realm. Just as Yuhauran picked up the essence stone and carefully observed it, Thaling explained in his sea of consciousness. Thaling, the weapon for Ling Fei has been refined. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yuhauran immediately asked in surprise. It's still early. For an Exalt Realm weapon, from the preparation of the materials to the formation of the formation inside the weapon, it was impossible to complete it without about half a year. If it weren't for the victor's ability to accelerate time, he wouldn't have chosen to refine an Exalt Realm weapon for Qin Lingfei in less than 15 days. Therefore, in the face of Yuhauran's idiotic questioning, Thaling couldn't help but roll his eyes and reply. It's still in the stage of refining the materials. Here you are. It was only the initial stage of refining the weapon. After hearing Thaling's reply, Yuhauran was slightly disappointed. The good thing was that he had gained a lot recently. He was almost halfway done with the preparations for the wedding ceremony. As for whether the pagoda spirit would be able to make a suitable weapon for Qin Lingfei before the wedding, he was no longer looking forward to it. Therefore, Yuhauran quickly put away the disappointment in his heart and directly sent the Earth Dragon Essence in his hand to Victor. Then, he looked at the treasure placed on the 3rd jade table. It was a jade box with a talisman on it. Thaling, since you are not in a hurry to refine the weapon now, Help me see if there are any hidden dangers in the jade box. The talisman on the jade box was called Spirit Sealing Talisman. Under normal circumstances, it was used to prevent the loss of spiritual power from storing treasures, but sometimes it was used to seal dangerous and evil things. Don't worry, there's no danger. After scanning the jade box with his divine sense, Thaling reminded him with a smile. This is a third-step 9th grade twin-headed purple mist flower. After opening the jade box, Yuhauran looked at the two conjoined flowers that were wrapped in a layer of faint purple gas. Yuhauran breathed heavily as he involuntarily said to himself, Yuhauran, whether it's in your storage ring or in my body, Victor, there are more than 30 types of third-grade elixirs. Is a mere third-grade 9th grade twin-headed purple mist flower worth your excitement? Thaling asked in confusion when he sensed the drastic change in Yuhauran's mood. Heart Snow Lotus Seed, twin-headed purple mist flower, 3 flavors returning fragrance core, 4 directions autumn leaf, 5 elements profound heart fruit, hexagonal blood fleece flower root, 7 colors bug, 8 elements giant dragon blood, 9 resurrection grass. Facing Thaling's questioning, Yuhauran took a deep breath and listed 9 different types of phase. Thaling, do you know what kind of pills can be refined using these 9 spiritual items? Combined with the 9 types of spiritual items that Yuhauran had just mentioned, Thaling carefully recalled the types of medicinal pills that he was familiar with. Finally, he thought of a medicinal pill that was close to the origin of the 9 types of spiritual herbs. Yuhauran, don't tell me it's the 9 tribulations, 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 9 tribulations? That's right. Nodding his head, Yuhauran looked at the 2-headed purple mist flower with excitement in his eyes. 1 tribulation, 1 realm. 9 tribulations to break through the Emperor barrier. The 9 tribulations pill can be said to be the best pill that can help one quickly break through to the martial saint realm and strengthen one's foundation at the same time. After receiving Yuhauran's confirmation, Thaling immediately checked the collection in Victor's storage ring. Finally, he found 3 flavors returning fragrance core, 5 elements profound heart fruit, hexagonal blood fleece flower root, and 8 elements giant dragon blood. In addition to the 2-headed purple mist flower that he had just obtained, he had collected 5 of the 9 types of spiritual herbs needed to refine the 9 tribulations pill. Thaling, among the remaining 4 types of spiritual items, I know the whereabouts of the Heart Snow Lotus Seed, 4 directions autumn leaf, and 7 colors bug. The only one that I don't have any information about is the 9 resurrection grass. Hearing Thaling mention the number of spiritual items that he had collected over the past 2 years, Yuhauran said with a frown. Yuhauran, if it were someone else, it would be very difficult to obtain the 9 resurrection grass. However, for you, an alchemy grandmaster who can refine the supreme Huazuan pill and the 7 lives mysterious gate pill, it is actually not difficult at all. Thaling reminded with a smile. Thaling, I understand. Nodding, Yuhauran indicated that he understood what he meant. Then, he looked at the treasure placed on the 4th jade platform. It was a dark gray talisman with a slightly damaged corner. The talisman patterns drawn on the talisman were very complicated and mysterious. Even if one used the strength close to the martial saint realm, they could only stare at the talisman patterns for 3 seconds at most. If it was longer than this time, the divine thought would vaguely have a tendency to break away from the control of the divine soul. Closing his eyes and pointing at the talisman placed on the jade platform, Yuhauran asked with slight fear, Thaling, what talisman is this? Let me take a look first. Thaling, who was somewhat unsure of the origin of the talisman, directly left the sea of consciousness with his divine soul and stood in front of the 4th jade platform. However, just as he steadied himself, and before he could take a closer look, the talisman that was lying peacefully on the jade platform suddenly floated up and quickly condensed into a faint starry sky. Thaling was so frightened that he immediately returned to the sea of consciousness. Howren, this is the Void Interstellar Talisman. It is a divine talisman that can tear apart the void and carry out interstellar teleportation. Thaling, who instantly returned to the sea of consciousness, said with a look of surprise. Thaling, in the endless void outside the Tianxian continent, are there really other continents and living beings? A divine talisman that could carry out interstellar teleportation. When he heard Thaling shout out the origin of the talisman, Howren's first reaction was not surprise, but instead, he was filled with doubts. Howren, if your cultivation level breaks through to the martial venerable realm, and you can refine the 9 tribulations pill in advance, then the interstellar adventure in the endless void will be the best place for training. In response to Howren's doubts, Thaling looked through the space between the sea of consciousness and the treasury and looked at the endless void. His eyes were filled with endless yearning as he sighed emotionally. Because the knowledge of different star regions can greatly expand your experience. Fighting with living beings of different realms and cultivation systems can hone your own martial art. In this case, it will be beneficial for you to break through to the almighty realm of Emperor Wu in the future, or even to see through the mystery of life and death, and the key to advancing to the martial god realm. Thaling, after the 5 regions hidden dragon ranking competition ends, if you don't have any other matters to attend to, how about you accompany me to the endless void? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.